Was there something in my walk, how I talk, giving off the wrong energy? Was there something in my stride, too much pride, telling you to back down? Slowly, slowly you became my enemy. But you can't seem to get enough of me. So if this is the last time, I guess I better make it worthwhile. Yeah, if this is the last time, I guess I better give it my all. So if this is the last time, I guess I better make it worthwhile. Yeah, if this is the last time, I guess I better give it my all. Was there something in my walk, how I talk, giving off the wrong energy? Was there something in my stride, too much pride, telling you to back down? Slowly, slowly you became my enemy. But you can't seem to get enough of me. So if this is the last time, I guess I better make it worthwhile. Yeah, if this is the last time, I guess I better give it my all. So if this is the last time, I guess I better make it worthwhile. Yeah, if this is the last time, I guess I better give it my all.
Wyatt Tinsley sends it to the outside. He can't get there. Kevin King is going to win the Barr FTF Cup Series.
Into the lead. Bud gets wrecked in front of the pack. He saves it. 3-4 wide as they come to the white flag.
Here comes Vargas down on the apron. They are 5 wide. Ian Plash will win it at the line. Is this package? Oh, there goes Jordan Lopez Jr. That's your race leader. Caution flag is out.
Still no one willing to give up as they are going to be dead even off of the first chicane.
Oh, he saves it. What's going to happen here? Here comes the canvas.
Get your foot down. He's got it. He's got it. Get there. No.
This is going to win.
Nicolas Cage up against rogue military squads? A late 90s wrestling great? No, The Rock means neither of these things to race fans. Instead, it's all about a now-defunct one-miler that was perhaps unfairly overlooked. It's going to give a rough ride to our competitors as we get ready to watch the TobyChristie.com 200 Round 4 of the Barr Visuals FTF Cup Series. And you'll see it all live here on FTF.gg. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Jake Sperry. Behind the scenes is our producer, Zach Johnson. And Jake, this is indeed going to be a rough one. That is not metaphorical. It's going to be bumpy.
It is going to be bumpy, and I think it's going to throw a couple of drivers through a loop. This is going to be the sort of race today. 197 lap stages at 50 and 100 before they reach the big 97 lap finish to this race. It's going to be an important challenge today to make sure that, okay, first and foremost, protect the car. Get yourself to lap 197. Then you can start thinking about the result at the end, because this is going to be a track which throws people through a loop, a 1 mile circuit with high banking. This is going to be about preserving quite a bit today.
Indeed, the drivers already on their way to the start-finish line. Let's give you a quick run through the grid here. As you can see, Tinsley and King on that front row, and there you can see the rest of a 43-car field here for this one, as the base car is getting ready to duck in. It's going to be action-packed out there. It's going to be tough, but multiple lines are usually available at this track, as there it goes. So here we get ready for 197 laps around the Rock, and the green flag is out. Pretty decent start for Tinsley, but he checks up those behind him, as the 88 is unable to get down to the bottom with justice there, so he stays up high at least for the time being. But can we get out of 1 and 2?
We can, it looks like, for the moment. Worth noting, Michael P. Fresh, who started third overall, had to go from the pit lane, so he's got the last to first challenge to try and navigate through. Already it's around 4th and 5th with the 97, Jordan Worth, where it's starting to get a little bit dicey. 2 to 3 wide as they enter through one. A couple off of the barriers, then up at the top, but able to keep it going and running that line. Watch it to go through, and there's going to be trouble in the wall, and now they're going to start spinning, and there's the first caution. Just 2 laps or 1.5.
Austin Farr, the one that comes off the worst for it. That was Falkingham and I think McCandless, who were up scraping the outside wall. They're not going to be able to do that too much later in the race once we start to get some marbles out there. But this kicked off, actually, I think, from Falkingham getting into the side of Parker White, and then poor Austin Farr, just in the checkup that ensued, got kind of punted down to the bottom. So here we've got a replay of it. I'm not surprised, but look at this, like you said, 3 wide right off the bat here, Jake. No wonder we had an incident.
Well, the 54 finds himself up on the top, and getting into the wall, everyone seems to think that cars up on the top just disappear. It's not the case. He's still got to have a line when he goes through off of the exit here of 2, and there's just no room for him when he gets up there. So it's just a case of drivers not leaving enough room for that 3 wide, and on top of that, you got that 8 degrees of banking here on the straight. So naturally, you're going to have that feel of everything is going to filter down on an accident today.
It's like Parker White is coming into pit lane. I think he may have been a little bit involved in that one. And Farr is going to take a stop in there as well. I see a few of the back markers that are electing to try and take an early pit stop to try and get to the end. Now, they do have 8 sets of tires, and this place does chew up tires. I would imagine, I would hope that they're not going to be using all 8 sets here for this race, but still wouldn't be too flippant about taking them.
Well, it's 25 laps per set, there or thereabouts, and you're looking at where you're going to be scoring the points today at 50, 100, and 197. So you're always going to be looking to try and have 4 or 5 sets, Joe, by the time that you reach lap 100. That gives you a lot of flexibility. For example, if you get into trouble, if you're looking at a caution coming out with 30 laps to go, 20 laps to go, you've got the options for 2 tires, you've got the options for 4 tires. So there are definitely plays available to them, and they know that with a caution after just 1.5 laps here today, this may be a long race. It may be the sign that it could be a long race. And we saw how early they were willing to be aggressive, to go 3 wide early on. And it's going to be about settling down. This sort of false start, some would say, off of the early stage of this race is going to put drivers in a state of anxiety, and now they're going to have to try and think, well, okay, what do we want to do? There's going to be some drivers who really gained well, and I'm looking about 13th, 14th, Joe, and those drivers already gained 6 places over the opening few laps.
Cautions notoriously breed cautions, so we'll see if we can get this kicked off this time and get some green flag racing, or if we're going to get a few more of these. Of the drivers that did stop in for a splash of fuel, Pankare, Yanashu, Naraki, Green, Zwack, Olsen, and I think Michael Frisch did as well. So just seeing if they could get themselves in a good position later on in case it does become a fuel race, as that could help give them a little bit of an advantage. Pace car getting ready to duck away. Tinsley once again has control of the field, looking for the green flag, and he's on it. No checkup on the bottom side at all this time. In fact, that 20 is off like a shot.
Wyatt Tinsley got a fantastic run, and it allows Derek Justice then up into second position, and that is going to be perfect in terms of the start. Now looking to try and get back down is Kevin King, trying to get as much drive as possible through 3 and 4, but no dice then really to get through, remains alongside, and it's about jostling, finding where the right place to get things going is, and we've got a nice little track of 2 lanes going through. Up high goes Zach Novak in the 75, trying to search for angle.
He cuts down off the corner pretty well, but it gets a little loose there on the bottom. The 97 of Jordan Worth having some trouble keeping the momentum up. He falls back a few positions, being so shallow down into turn 3. It does look like we're getting some green flag racing in here, but it's still a little bit frantic like you predicted there in that mid-pack.
Novak goes to the point then at the front of the field. He's worked fantastically, and the line now checks up to a group of 6 now at the front, and they're going to try and run it to single file, or you're going to try and sling around the outside, try and get as much drive as possible. I think that's Sebastian Marin who's starting to make some progress now up on the top, who's going to try and make some runs up then to 3rd position. And the 48 does manage then to keep things going, or the 048. So there's still really good chances then in these early stages. If you want to make moves, if you want to use the tyres, use them, you'll pay for them later. Trouble though down at the bottom, we got a caution.
Trying to make out who that was. Jordan Worth offering an apology, so there's one clue into what could have potentially happened. It looks like the 82 and the 8, I think, involved in this one. That's Kyler Wynn and Tyler Gary, and then Jordan Worth just unfortunately, once again, very similar to the first incident, Jake, a driver behind didn't have enough reaction time to try and stay out of the incident and caused what eventually was the yellow flag.
Yeah, you got Tyler Gary then in the 8, who's going to be a little bit slow through the middle. You can see just struggling a little bit, trying to get that back down to the line. And then the moment that you get there, the checkup starts. And, you know, Jordan will apologize on that. We didn't have the sight really to understand how quickly it needs to check up. You can see Gary gets a little bit low on entry. That pushes him up slightly high. And then you've got the small bit of contact. That then sets the chain reaction off. And for Kyler Wynn, well, that's just getting very, very unlucky here in the early stages.
So he goes to the back. Tyler Gary heads into pit lane. Jordan Worth as well. Both of them involved. We'll see if anybody else decides to try that early strategy. Matt Danson is going to come in and get a splash of fuel, it seems, but none others behind him. No, Nick Olson, Naraki, well, almost all of the drivers that came in the first time there have elected to come in again. Wonder if this is just almost a super speedway-esque strategy here, Jake, that they're attempting to put themselves at the back of the field to kind of stay out of the trouble.
Well, in the early stages, that's not a bad idea if you're near the rear of the field. We've seen how very Colosseum-like it has felt over the opening stages of this race, these 11 laps that have gone through. And it's almost when you find yourself in these sorts of positions that it is very easy for you to jump around and say, right, if I find myself in the middle, 2-3 wide in about 20th position or so, that's not going to be exactly where I want to be in this race. So by pitting, going to the back, yes, you do get out of trouble, you do lose the track position, but you also have the opportunity, Joe, to look at the race and go, well, I can watch this race develop for maybe 50, 60, 70 laps or so, and then I can start making my push, especially around that final stage of the race, which is a long final stage, which I think where drivers are going to be pushing if they're not too focused about stage points.
And it seems the stewards are not going to use the lack of reaction time as an excuse tonight. They've been giving Jordan Worth the end-of-line penalty for causing that incident. So he'll start dead last on the field here once we get this restart going. And he's got a lot of work to do to get back to the front. But one thing I did love seeing in the laps that we did get under green here, Jake, is I'm still a little bit bummed that this place doesn't see any racing anymore, because, I mean, you can see just the wide variety of lines that anybody's able to choose, and that's probably going to just happen all night tonight.
I expect it to, and that's one of the things that I love about Rockingham Speedway. It's one of these tracks which has a unique nature as a 1 mile circuit. You have the opportunity to go to the low line, you have the opportunity to go to the high line, and they both offer slightly different opportunities out there. And it's another one of these unique circuits as well that isn't in the mold, say, Joe, of tracks which are equal all the way around. You've got 22 degrees worth of banking on one corner and 25 degrees on the other. It becomes a little bit of a setup nightmare.
Absolutely, yeah. Symmetry was not a thing when they made this track. It is all different kinds of weird shapes all around, so it does make it tough, but I want to see the drivers challenged, especially with the level of skill that we have out here in this race. A lot of black stripe drivers coming from the Coke series that are racing in this. In fact, I believe the strength of field is probably in the 5 or 6K range from what I can tell, as very few of them are below that 5K range, just a couple of maybe 3,000 or 4,000 level drivers in terms of iRating. But this time it's going to be Zach Novak and Wyatt Tinsley on that front row. Zach took that lead away during the final, or the most recent green flag stint. Let's see what he can do here as the green flag is out. Pretty good jump for that number 75. He's going to be able to get ahead of Wyatt Tinsley. Let's see if he ducks down to the bottom. Yes, he does.
And he does so very, very nicely there, and just made sure with that jump, even though he was pressured a little bit, he was in trouble. But look at the drive that Wyatt Tinsley gets, coming off then a 2 and down to the bottom at 3, has a chance to get there. But again, through the middle of the corner, just pushing up a little bit higher seems to be the way that's working in the early stages. Now keep an eye on the number 13 here tonight, the only driver so far, Daniel Butafuoco, to have 3 top 10 finishes this season. We certainly one of those drivers looking to continue that streak.
Ooh, bit of a moment there for McCandless as he gets loose down the backstretch, gathers it back up, thankfully. I'm not sure if he actually brushed that outside wall, but he seems to still have his speed up. Novak leads Tinsley across the line. Sebastian Marin is fighting with Justice, though, to try and take that 3rd place away. It's going to be Marin up to the high side, Justice down to the low side, and neither seeming to gain an advantage.
No, neither getting an advantage then through 1 and 2, but here at 3 is where you're really going to start noticing it, trying to drive up high, get as much as you can off the exit, but the fact that Wyatt Tinsley goes low is enough to keep Derek Justice in the 031 into position in this battle, and you're going to need a little bit of help here. The top 6 are starting to break away here from the group behind. Kevin King, Daniel Butafuoco, Alex Kalinix is in there as well. That second group needs to start coordinating, otherwise they're going to get dropped.
Justice gets the spot, and now it looks like Marin is having to fight off Daniel Rockingham, but he gets a much better run off the corner compared to Daniel. Meanwhile, just behind him, up on the high side, Blake McCandless has been running up close to the wall for much of the night. Seems to be doing pretty good as that gives him a big shot off of 2, down into 3. Look at him chuck it in there.
Not only does he chuck it in there, he gets a lot of drive off the exit too. Welcome back. And he will say hello to Derek Justice, getting on that move. The 26-year-old from Raleigh, not a million miles away here from Rockingham at this point in time. And he is trying to run that high line, and it is working. He's got something that's dialed in, and already in about 2 laps, 6th up to 2nd, and will be challenging Zach Novak for the lead.
Holy cow, he's been making about a position a lap here. And let's see, yeah, once again, just firing off of that corner. And he's got a whole bunch of speed coming down into 1 and 2. Is he going to be able to get this done, though, by the time they hit the backstretch? Yes, he absolutely is.
And on lap 20, very crucially, takes the race lead. So we'll have 31 laps to hold in order to get things going. Back for 3rd, it starts to get interesting now with Tinsley and Justice there. And a long green flag run might be what the doctor orders for a couple of drivers. But you do have that sense of understanding that if you push really hard early, you're not going to have much later. And I think that's where you're going to start seeing the swings and roundabouts of this race.
Yeah, that's a good question about McCandless. Yes, he's getting the track position, he's getting a gap now, but is he using up his stuff, especially if we get a long green flag run? Single file until you get back to, about 10th position. And they're still slicing and dicing there in the mid-pack to try and find themselves some track position. There they are on your screen now. The front of that group is Kevin King there in P7. And the number 88 says, boy, they really drift up off of 2. And I wouldn't be surprised if we saw more incidents like we saw with that first yellow, Jake.
Yeah, it was very close with Kalinix, who got very close to Nate Stewart in the 4, and this is what you're going to see. We go on board now as they drive. Look how close you got to go up through 1 and 2. It's very much a case of overtake or be overtaken in this second group right now, and you've just got to be alert. Little tap off of the wall, that would have been a small hint of concern there, and then through 3 and 4 once again. You've got to start thinking about, okay, Can you get some coordination up on the top? Because that's where the ideal line is to pass. And now we're going to go 3 wide because underneath them, you've got the likes of Ryan Doucette, who's trying to make the move in the Altus car, trying to find that run. And the 88 of Kevin King's going to drop down low, and he neuters that run pretty quickly.
Ooh, the 13th of Buttafuoco, though, seemed to have to get out of it pretty badly because he dropped a lot of spots there coming off of 2. And up on the high side, Nate Stewart in that number 4 is doing the Blake McCandless line for now, just running high and blasting past people off the exit of the corner. Still 3 wide behind him, though, and this time it's the 22 who has to give up spots. Kalonix just can't seem to get the exit, being stuck in the middle, and he falls down to 12th.
Yeah, it was Logan Helton who made the progress through, and all of a sudden being on the bottom isn't quite exactly where you want to be, and it's that drive that's going to be so crucial, and the bottom doesn't seem to be working at the moment, but there's still some worth in trying to run that bottom line. A track evolves, Joe, as the race goes on, so maybe if that high line, which is seemingly the line that's working here today at this moment of time, is good, later on in the race might be a little bit different, might get that low line just slowly start to creep back in, inch by inch, lap by lap, as now it is up in lead of that second group. Logan Helton now up inside the top 10.
Speaking of lead and speaking of evolving, McCandless is now 2.5 seconds ahead of Novak already. If he isn't using up his tires, if he is legitimately this fast, this is bad news for everybody else. I'm kind of shocked anybody in this series has this much pace over the others.
This is what's called, Joe, being in a league of one. And it's a very scary prospect when you are everyone else, because it's basically, do you take Blake McCandless or do you take the field? And at the moment, I take Blake McCandless with the way that he's been driving out there at the moment. 2.8 seconds almost, the margin then over Zach Novak, Derek Justice, Wyatt Tinsley. And this is a group behind that I would say is a very, very accomplished field that is being absolutely gapped right now by McCandless.
Yeah, that's why I'm so astonished. Like I said, Coke-level drivers, the top of the top, and iRacing oval drivers, and they're just getting stomped. And this is a fixed setup series, so there's nothing special out there in his setup. He's just out-driving them, which is just astonishing, frankly. As we continue to watch the battle for second best, I guess, down here, drivers trying to see if they can get back ahead of Zach Novak into P2.
Yeah, so Novak currently holding the group right now and doing a very decent job of things with Justice, with Tinsley, with Rockingham, and now suddenly clawing away onto the back. Started 22nd, and within 31 laps has found his way up into P6. Nate Stewart now starting to run that high line and has seemingly found something that clicks in the number 4 and is going to be joined as well. He's already dispatched a Sebastian Marin, so this is now for Nate Stewart a case of trying to run through the field, and again we'll go high, looking for a way past 54, Daniel Rockingham.
Ooh, just brushed the wall coming out of 4. He likes that high line, but will it bite him in the end? Because he is really flirting with danger. He's up to 6. He's been using this to get through into that battle in the top 10. Now what can he do now that he has caught the front group? And can he maybe chase down Blake McCandless? Is this the hero they've been looking for?
It might be, but it's going to need a little bit more than just getting onto the back and staying there, because suddenly that gap is opening out. It's about half a second now in terms of the group, which isn't the end of the world, but you're going to have to try and make some progress here, and they're not a million miles away. Remember, they do have that stop when they get to 50, and this is the key. They're running out of time, and suddenly Wyatt Tinsley down low is going to make the move, and Derek Justice is going to find out that there goes their position. There's no cautions for the stage, but you get the points at 50, so that's what they're racing for. They're trying to drive up to 50. They're trying to get there and get those points. They know they want to count them. They know they want to get there quickly, and they know that after lap 50, that's fine. You can reset from that point onwards and try and take it as another 50 to challenge.
So Stewart's up to 5th. He managed to go by Rockingham. I wonder if we could get an onboard, especially off of 2 here for that number 4 car. Last time out, he was having to chase it and did some correction. Let's see if the car wiggles once again, because you're coming off here very fast.
Coming off there, you can see just a little bit of a wiggle then trying to get that run off onto the back straight into turn 3 now. And Nate Stewart's really trying to find this line, really trying to get something. And yeah, you definitely notice that on the transfer down where the car gets loose, and that could be where the struggle streak starts to come in, when it gets looser and looser and looser as a run goes on.
Well, if that's happening to him, I wonder what's happening to McCandless, who's still also riding high, and if he's experiencing any of the same sort of tire loss, grip loss here throughout the race. Let's see if he's also squirreling his way off the corners here as we follow him out of 2. No, that is much, much smoother.
It is much smoother. Novak was slightly quicker. It was a 4.3 compared to a 4.9 of McCandless over that last lap. So we might just be seeing the plateau start to bring itself in, where Novak is now starting to come back into the stint compared to McCandless out in front. But a 24.5 compared to a 4.4, I think we've just hit the tyre drop-off right now. McCandless is now going to pay for it. He's got 12 laps to hold on to a 3.7 second margin.
So up through 3 and 4 once again and back onto the front stretch. There was a little bit of a wiggle that time from the 071, so maybe McCandless feeling it just a little bit now. And that'll be something to keep an eye on as the race progresses. We expect that they will be stopping into the pits after the stage if we stay green here. So that will be a huge relief for everybody who's still out on the same tires that they started this on. They got a few laps under caution to help preserve them a little bit more. But other than that, they've been burning them up. Meanwhile, we go side by side once again down into 1 and 2 between Falkingham and now Sebastian Marin, who has caught up to him but doesn't have the pace, Jake, on the backstretch.
No, and I think that's quite telling, as now Marin will just have to try and stay patient, because you've got the group behind there, you've got Helton and King. They're both going to want to get in, they're both going to want to get through, and this is where the opening stage comes in, right up against the wall, trading a little bit of paint with that outside wall there went Daniel Falkingham, and he's going to have to be cautious about that over the course of this one. You don't want to throw the car away in this one, but it's just going to be that small, okay, that's fine, but now again through 3 and 4, you just got to be alert coming off of the walls here, because you're not going to be given much space on that high line, especially if you're defending from underneath.
That's Helton behind them. Logan Helton that's trying to hunt them down as well in the 63. The black machine that you see on the high side gets a pretty good run and stops up the hole before Sebastian Marin can try and jump up there as well. Does seem like the high line is the place to be. We're going to go 3 wide, though, coming off the turn. That will absolutely slow up Sebastian and the 88 of Kevin King.
Kevin King making sure that the low line finds a way to work, and that's quite clever in terms of getting that sorted, having the audacity to push it to 3 wide, getting it done, and Helton then will have to try and go low to get past Falkingham, who doesn't quite have the tyre underneath, and just wobbling up the track a little bit goes Logan Helton, but what a drive he's having, up into 6th position now, started 18th overall in this opening stage, and now getting very close to the point mark on lap 44. The chase very much on. Can there be a way to catch Nate Stewart, who's down by 0.6 of a second at this point?
Coming around here as we watch this battle in the mid-pack. Looks like Marine's not going to have the pace. Going to get overtaken by Falkingham as the 13 still up on the high side that seems to be coming in much quicker than the bottom. Drivers pinching off that low line. Just can't keep the speed up, but 4 more laps now until we get to that stage points handout. I keep wanting to say stage caution, but that is not the case in this series. And as they once again circle around, Falkingham up on the high side gets a challenge from Buttafuoco, but 13 can't do it.
Can't do it, but there's still time yet, and that's going to be the key. Where do you find it? Now, every position matters. You're not going to go, quote-unquote, for broke at this stage, but you're going to try and get a run. Kevin King, for example, started to think about the push there, trying to push Helton through to get around, or maybe thread the middle. Let's go 3 wide. Let's get the drive off the exit. Kevin King with the dispatch of 1 as the struggling tyres now of Nate Stewart. He pays for the price of using them early here with 3 before the handout comes into play.
But Helton is reaping the rewards of preserving them, or is he? As the car gets loose coming off of 2, Kevin King going to duck underneath him, get that spot right back.
Easy as that, waiting for the last stages to get that drive and then managing it. But at this point, you start to think about, okay, where can you get it? Because it's starting now to get interesting for third as well, with Derek Justice and Wyatt Tinsley. Those two are starting to get into the mix here, and they know that they're going to be running out of opportunities very, very soon in terms of finding the points at the end of 50. Tinsley's got no drive, and Derek Justice says, thank you, that's mine.
Yeah, into this lap. Ooh, McCandless just brushed the wall up at the very front, but he's so far ahead, really doesn't affect him all that much. It was a little glance. I think he'll be okay on that one. Points being handed out as he comes to cross the line. McCandless with authority on the first stage. An impressive run, but how much longer will he go before he comes in to take tires? Is he going to try and run it long, or has he used up his stuff and going to come in a little bit early here as we jump back once again to some of our battles amongst the top 10?
Yeah, so you've still got to focus that this is a 197-lap race. It's not just a 51-lap race or a 50-lap race and then a 50-lap race, then a 97-lap race. You've got to think about the entire picture from time to time, and those who have gone out looking for the opening stage point are now going to start feeling the effects, as Stuart will demonstrate as round goes Ryan Doucette, making the move then up inside the top 10, moving to 10th position. You've got to time your moments, and this is where you're going to see those who maybe were aggressive off the start now start to decide, well, okay, we're getting close to our window where it's the right time to think about, okay, where you go through, and on cue, in comes the race leader.
That answers that question. McCandless is going to pit a little bit early. Now, this can be a bit dangerous because if a caution comes out and he is a lap down, he's trapped a lap down. And when drivers are going to be out on track, Jake, with various ages of tires, that just increases the chances of a yellow.
Yeah, and you're looking at not wanting to get caught out. So it's a gamble sometimes to come in a little bit early, but you're relying on a long green flag run like we've had right now and everyone coordinating. From what I'm hearing out there right now, there are a couple of drivers who maybe aren't coordinating as much and aren't going to be as happy. As heard on the horn, unironically, the 67 of Connor Horn maybe not the most happy out there, but this is where you started to get those drivers who, okay, we're just after a points haul that's just come in. Now you've got to really work on it, and making that work is going to be crucial. Look at Derek Justice now with Zach Novak. He is trying to work then on this race lead. Gonna push him as close as you want to the wall through 3 and into 4, and suddenly Justice has the inside and wants to take over from Zach Novak and get his first lap led of this race.
McCandless is back out, but we're only just now seeing a couple more drivers in pit lane. Liam Sheen looks to be the next one, along with Blake Bryant. But McCandless, 1 lap down from the leader, needs to make extra sure that either he gets the lucky dog, which he'd still be, unfortunately, at the back of the pack, or that he can survive this until everybody stops and we don't get a yellow before that point. Novak still your leader here on screen, with Justice just riding behind him. It's a little bit of a gap to Tinsley, about a 1.5 seconds now to the 3rd position. I think a couple more coming in. Nope, that just changes the position that I'm seeing on my timing screen. Still not many drivers electing to try and take the stop.
No, because most drivers are going to want to try and get as far as they can on fuel before they have to push and make that stop. We know tyres is a big factor, and in terms of what they're doing, you look at someone like Zach Novak at the moment, who's up on the top line. It was a 25.0 on that lap. You look at the opening laps that were done, or the fastest lap was a 24.1. So you talk about 0.9 of a second's difference over the course. And every time I've heard about it, they say, well, 1/10 of a second is equivalent to a second on a road course. So you're telling me that's 9 seconds worth of difference, give or take, Joe?
Yeah, I think the early call is going to pay huge dividends if the gamble works out. So the drivers who are early pitting probably going to see quite a bit of inroads, but then they'll have to pay the piper later on. It does make me wonder, though, because they can probably go quite a while on fuel here. So is it worth it maybe to try and do about a stop less as somebody's down low there? That's the 07 of Blake Bryant on the backstretch as Zach Novak loses the lead to Justice down into 3 and 4. That's because he's pitting in. Novak, very late call, but it looks like he'll make it.
Yeah, lap 60, then the decision for Novak to dive down in, which isn't a bad decision at all at this stage of the race. So we are right in the middle of the window now. Drivers going to start thinking about it. How far do you want to push? 63, 64? You might be in a pretty nice window to try and get through to count to 197. You're always trying to make sure, okay, what can you do? If you can get to 64, by rough maths, that's going to be about 3 and maybe a small splash and dash, which would be ideal if it stayed green the entire way. But of course, we're out there looking to try and see who's going to push. And at the moment, Derek Justice, 2.5 seconds over Kevin King, but a number of drivers still yet to pit, including a driver who's done very well so far in 4th position here, Joe, in Blake Reynolds.
We narrowly had a caution. The 21 of Austin Johnson absolutely smashed the wall, but the car didn't go sideways, so they elected not to throw the yellow, and he somehow barely made it back down into pit lane. Yeah, this is after the incident here. He's already got a car that is handling terribly and had just the right timing for the gap to get down into pit lane. Here's where it happens, though, off of 2.
Yeah, this is where you notice when a car gets loose, bang! That's where the hit comes through, and you'll be looking at that rear left tyre being the one that's going to be causing most of the troubles. And look at it, look at how flat it looks as he tries to get any form of drive to get it back down the hill and into the pits. He's done very well to manage that, and this is where you start noticing on the tyres. Okay, you want to be as cautious as possible if you're going to play the long game. If you want to play the short game, go and get some run early, then you're going to be out there being aggressive. But now with a fresh set, it's time to get back out there and go, and we're seeing a huge boatload of drivers jumping into the lane right now.
Indeed, which puts Michael Cozy up into the lead now, but he started from pit lane, it looks like, actually, if I'm seeing correctly, because I'm showing time in the lane, but I don't believe he's had a black flag up till now. Now he's pitting and works his way in, so Parker White inherits the lead. Parker has been down pit lane to take repairs earlier on, but still needs to take fresh tires since then. Probably a little bit of fuel as well. We still need a stop from Gossett, and I think just a handful of others, but it's becoming a smaller and smaller number. And what is our former leader? McCandless is 11th, it looks like, and climbing.
And climbing just behind the likes of David Brown, so we'll have about 10 seconds to chase that down. So he's doing a very good job. Novak has come out then effective second at this point, and when you've got the fresh tyres and you want to go use it, now is absolutely the time where you need to start making hay. But when you're dealing with machines that are a little bit slower in front of you and you're trying to pick a way through where everybody is, this is where you start having to dance. This is where you're going to have to start being a little bit alert, as we see now jumping down onto the lane. I believe that will be the 7 of Matthew Zwack, who then looks to make the stop, and a very early pit box there for Zwack, which sometimes is very good. Line of sight, probably the most useful thing, and this is one of the more unique pit lanes that you've got around here, Joe. It goes all the way around, very like Phoenix. It goes all the way around the opening corner.
Yeah, indeed, and dumps you out on the backstretch. They actually used to have 2 separate pit lanes here before they added that, just because it's not that long of a track. A mile seems like a lot compared to many short ovals around the country, but in NASCAR terms, it's a bit tiny these days for how powerful the cars have gotten. So Zwack takes his service. We're still waiting on White, as I mentioned, Danson, Worth, Ionescu, and Punkari, along with Naraki. Otherwise, McCandless is up to 7th with a 7-second gap to Novak, who was the next nearest car to have completed the stops on this cycle.
And what wonderful work then. We'll see a brilliant wheeler in action then, so to speak, as McCandless has Spencer Ray just in front and getting very high up there against it, and got the likes of Nate Stewart, Kyler Wynn, Jonathan Oates. This will all be lap traffic to try and navigate through. And every single time you go around, you're just looking to try and find a little bit of space out there, just trying to pick them off one at a time. And for the moment, McCandless knows that these drivers are going to be very similar in terms of pace. And if they've learned anything from how overtakes have been happening in the early stages, they're going to be following that same line.
Worth announced he'll be pitting in, and it looks like he's going to be joined by Danson. So Jonas Schuh now takes the lead, and I think that only leaves Naraki, Punkari, and that's it. So 3 drivers left that still need to take a pit stop, but McCandless obviously is on the lead lap by this point, along with a lot of other drivers, although some have gone a lap down in that cycle, waiting a bit long. Waiting to see if we get any of these top runners. Yeah, there we go. Punkari's in the number 37. Excuse me, Naraki rather. Punkari stays out in the 35.
And then there were 2, Joe. And this is where you just look to cycle through the field and say those last 2 probably going the longest. We're able to take a bit of fuel on their strategy, so they're going to be slightly out compared to some of the other drivers that are there. In comes Ionescu then to make the stop, which will leave Brett Punkari out then at the moment, but he's lost position out there to McCandless, who now has the race lead out there in this race and will be now looking to stretch, but by having to be patient and being walled up behind a couple drivers here, Joe. Watch that gap between him and Zach Novak. It's come down from 7 seconds to 5.8. Novak's wheeling.
I need to check and see what the fuel stint's going to be like out here. Oh, never mind. Punkari's coming in now. I wondered if he was going to just try and run it absolutely completely dry to try and make less of a stop, figuring that it was going to go green. So McCandless is now your leader once again with the last of our stops. We're going to take a quick break here on FTF.GG. We'll be back with the next stage here in just a moment. Welcome back to Rockingham Speedway. We're here for the TobyChristie.com 200 round 4 of the Barr Visuals FTF Cup Series. And right now, Blake McCandless is your leader, but it's starting to become a question of for how long. Because of his early pit stop, he had the advantage before, but not anymore. Zach Novak on 8-lap fresher tires, Jake, has been chipping away. And considering how many laps we have left in this stage, I'm doubtful that Blake's going to be our leader by the end of it.
Well, you consider this right now, 18 laps to hold on as Novak rides the wall actually through 2, which wouldn't have been helpful. McCandless just has to hold on. He's looking for the points in stage 1, got those. Looking for the points in stage 2, is going to have to hold on for this one. It's not going to be a guarantee. He's going to have to be very, very patient with the way that he goes through. And effectively, he's got to let the car drive him a little bit. It seems like a weird concept to say, but he can only drive within the bounds of what his car is giving him. It's not giving him much grip on the tyres. Novak's driving a car that's a lot quicker than him right now. So the focus is going to be for McCandless. Just do the best that you can, mitigate as much damage. And when Novak gets there, wait and see.
Yeah, consistently, Zach has been about 0.3 of a lap quicker. And that last lap, obviously, with the brush of the wall, he was a little slower, but still faster even with that. This time, yeah, another 0.3, chopped off. It's down to 1.7. What is Justice doing as well? Yeah, Justice coming for him as well. Wyatt Tinsley also looking like he's consistently faster than Blake McCandless. So, unfortunately, it's just maybe eating his sweeties a little bit too early if you're in that 071 camp, and is going to have to fight hard to try and stay in front. But with the variety of lines working to make those passes, that's going to be a tough ask.
It is going to be a really tough ask, and effectively you've got the whole book in front of you if you're Zach Novak. I can choose to go low, I can choose to go high, I can choose here, there and everywhere to try and make it happen. Just 2 cars in between Nick Olsen and Alex Kalanick's then, the 2 to get through, but we won't have to wait, there's a caution.
I see the 07 of Bryant on the backstretch. Looks like he is, once again, a driver getting a little loose, and there just wasn't enough space around him, and others get into him. Looks like Kyler Wynn, for the second time in this race, involved in an incident. And I think the 099 also gets a big piece of it. That's Brandon Hawken. Oh, he had a huge punt, actually, from Nate Stewart, the 4-car, who was very fast earlier on. So here's going to be the incident onto the backstretch. Let's watch.
Watch how the car gets loose. It's going to be all about getting loose. That's the key then of the 07, the dead zone machine. Then just the back end starts to go, nowhere to go. You can't get down low quick enough, and everyone just piles in. And really, it could have been a lot worse than it was there. Just a solo car incident brings the field back together once again. And that then, for Blake McCandless, is probably the biggest nightmare there. In fact, going to maybe take the decision. Yep, will take the decision to come into the pits. But there's another look at it. That's how quickly it can stack up here. Not really much room to go off the corner.
I think actually that worked out great for McCandless, because this allows him to get back on strategy with everybody else. All the drivers on the lead lap are pitting in with him because of the way this place chews up tires. But boy, was it a chain reaction on that backstretch with multiple drivers unfortunately making contact with one another. Hopefully that doesn't slow them too much. Up at the front, it looks like drivers getting into their pit stalls, and we'll have to wait to see who is first out, because we are waiting for McCandless to be able to retake it. Look, he's on his way already as he heads to the line. Not even challenged. Novak can't get by him.
No, certainly can't. And nobody's going to make that call then, it seems, to go to 2 tyres. And why would you, with no cautions coming out at the end of that stage? You're looking at, okay, well, there's no real benefit. I put myself on a really tough strategy if I go to that. So everyone naturally is going to go to the 4-tyre call, get themselves then looking at that long run towards the end of the race. And there are a couple drivers here who have made some great progress. Remember how Michael Frisch started in pit lane, Joe, to start this race off? Well, he finds himself in 12th position. He's been doing a wonderful job in the 58 car, and he has brought himself back within a look and a sniff of a top 10 and even some more.
Indeed. A lot of drivers, though, were caught a lap down. That's why I have so many of them in front of our leaders right now. Did something happen to Kalanick's? He was stopped at pit entry, and I was trying to figure out what he was doing there. He was waiting patiently. I wonder if he had to wait for a car to go by to avoid a black flag or something, but that was costly time for that 22, I'm afraid.
It is costly time, and the caution periods are probably the most important periods of the race, because this is where you jumble up the position. So it's McCandless in control, Zach Novak second, Wyatt Tinsley third, Derek Justice fourth. So no real changes out there. So not really too much needs to be concerned about when they go through. But in terms of the movers as well, Brian Mercurio up 20 so far in this one is really putting in some good work to go through. And just hearing some word from race control that it was the 07 which would be determined as the cause of the troubles out there on the circuit. And as such, then, that is going to be, the 071, I should say.
Whoa. That's McCandless. I wondered about that when I saw 71. I was like, is there a 71 that's not Blake McCandless? And they've corrected themselves with 071. McCandless, I think, is going to have to get an end of line. He'll go from front to back.
Wow. So that's not going to be good if that's the case. So they were saying too many stalls out there, which would have been the trouble going through, and it's a pit road violation which will go through. So drivers have to try and get themselves out from where they are over to the effectively the transit lane as quickly as possible. You can't drive just through the stalls like it's any old business. You have to get out to the transit lane, and I think that's what they got Blake McCandless on.
Wow, that's an unfortunate simple error for him to make here that will wind up being quite costly. Novak, Tinsley, Justice, these guys all now have clear road in front of them, and the man that they've been trying to beat and don't seem to have pace for part of the time now have a lot of cars between themselves and that 071. So what are they going to do with all the free reign in front of them? I think we should be getting cars waved by. I thought we were supposed to get cars waved by here. Let me double check on the pace car to see if the lights are out, because they should have been out this time. No, they are still on. So they're still sorting some things out. So that's why we have not gone double file here, and why we still have a whole bunch of cars that are leading this race despite being a lap down, which is going to shorten how many laps we have before that stage break. Not really a break, but when the points are handed out, Jake, and that's going to make for some very frantic drivers on this restart.
Yeah, there are 13 drivers here who are due a wave around here on the pace car, and I've just heard word from the race control that those 13 will get the wave around on the one to go, on the one to green, and as such, they will very quickly have to join up with the back of the group to get themselves back into position once again. So expect this all to clear up. But at this stage, seeing the likes of someone who's been very predominant up at the front of the field, then back to the rear, it really does shuffle up the points, and effectively it gives a free pass. Go out there, make something happen then. Here is you can see the wave round happens, so everyone will stack up then too wide behind the pace car and then get themselves ready to get back going again here, Joe, on lap 93 of 197.
Indeed. So they are ready to go. Lights are off, and Tinsley and Novak will have control of the field. This will put a lot more cars back on the lead lap, 39 of them. In fact, as before, you could see there was probably close to a dozen that had been trapped a lap down from that last pit sequence just from waiting too long. Here we go. We're going to restart on lap 93. Just 8 laps to try and figure out who is going to get the bonus points from the stage. Green flag is out. The 75 gives a very good jump on the high line, trying to bring Justice along with him. But Justice doesn't have the speed. The 20 of Tinsley covering the bottom line. We've seen the high line work before. Once they get up to momentum, is that going to start to be the case again?
That's going to be the question. Justice did not prevail, and look at the defensive pact all going up high. One in the wall up top, though. It's going to keep it out of trouble and keep that going. That's Sebastian Marin then getting into a bit of trouble there. So able to keep this one going. We stay green here on 94. Novak then, and Justice starts to make moves on the bottom. He moves up now into second. Won't have drive off the exit. Tinsley closes.
Yeah, Justice losing control of the rear a little bit on the way out of 2, but Tinsley doesn't make the move. Blake Reynolds and Kevin King ducking down to the bottom behind them. Haven't really talked about Blake Reynolds much, but he is up to 4th, a gain of 18.
Well, you could argue Michael Frisch behind from 6th has had a gain of, well, how many are there in this race? 43. You could say he's had a gain of 38 so far in this race. He's done so well. But Novak with a half a second's push with 5 to go before the caution marker gets there. Or not the caution marker, I should say, the handout gets there. And you could say it's certainly working, but it is starting to get very dicey as they go through, and they do hit the buffer zone here.
88 brushing the wall on the way into the corner, but ducking down in front of him, Blake Reynolds covers him off. Parker White pinched to the bottom, can't keep his speed up. He gets back in line and tries to once again go underneath King in that number 88. They almost go 3 wide briefly, but that bottom line just doesn't seem to really keep the speed for the drivers off the corner the way the top side does.
No, and that's the key. It's drive off the exits. You can use some of the banking here to really drop down off to that 8 degrees worth of banking and really go through. It's just gravity. You work, if you want to come down off a corner compared to come up off a corner, it's going to be slightly quicker on the exit. And that's the way that it goes through. They'll have 3 to go at this next stage, and it's the 8 of Tyler Gary who's now starting to fall a little bit backwards as there's another little look to the inside. And again, it looks like Kevin King, who loves that bottom line, is covering everything that Parker White's there, and the 8 gets very loose off the exit of 2, is going to drop a boat.
That's Tyler Gary. Yeah, he's going to get overtaken by Mercurio, Doucette, Helton, unfortunately. Helton covering off that high line, keeping Doucette from trying to make a move on him there down low. As we just have 2 laps to go until they hand out those points. Boy, they are riding that high line right up to the wall. It scares me every time.
Scares me as well. It shows that everyone's going to be driving on a knife edge throughout the course of this race. We've already seen one driver push it up against the wall on this run already, looking for good moves then off the exit as they hit that 100th lap. Kevin King was searching. Parker White's been searching all run long, but isn't going to find it at the front. It's still enough of a gap for the 75, Zach Novak.
Yeah, he seems to have gotten himself quite a comfort zone as Justice at half a second behind can't do much. So the bonus points, most of them anyways, are going to be going to Novak there as we tick off the end of lap 100 and they cross the line. McCandless, by the way, is up to 21st and trying to steadily climb his way through the order. We'll check in on him a little later to see what kind of progress he can make. But starting to get single file, I think, now that we've seen those bonus points handed out at the front of the field.
We are starting to, and now they know they've got to settle in because this is the long stretch then to the end of the race. 97 laps, that's at least one green flag pit stop that they're going to be searching for. And we've seen some long runs. To the bottom goes Parker White, had a good run on Kevin King. Didn't quite manage it as Novak then with the lead of half a second. This is where the race is at the moment between these two, King and White. The race on for 5th position here, and Parker White, if he continues to try and be aggressive and search for those moves, he's going to wear out his tyres trying to find that pass. He might have to settle back in a couple of laps if he still can't find the overtake.
Every time he tries to get to the bottom, it just doesn't seem to do it. Behind him, your favorite, Michael Frisch, is there, hovering, waiting for more that he could just snatch right up. And he's bringing along Logan Helton with him. So we're now past the halfway point in this race. From here, no more stage bonus points to be handed out. It's the race to the finish. They will need at least one more pit stop to get to the end.
They will, and I think it's going to be about who's been the most cautious, because if it stays on a green run like it is right now, you're looking to try and chop the group in half as much as you can, but you're going to have to be patient on those tyres, and it's who's been managing, who's been good at rushing up through the field and saving what's there. It might not be a benefit to make overtakes right now when you have to just make sure that you're giving yourself enough margin. You're sort of the point of the race here, Joe, where you need about 20 laps to really see and understand and dictate where the rest of this race is starting to go. As again, here comes the look then from Parker White, but once more, it's drive off the exit that seems to be the troublemaker. Can't find it on Kevin King, who every time he's gone around so far, 1 and 2, he looks like he's got the most planted car. He looks like he knows exactly where he's putting it, and any which way a driver looks around Kevin King, it's almost like trying to extricate yourself from a rose bush. He's that difficult to pass.
So I went looking at Brent Pancari's first stint there, and it was around 75 laps or thereabouts, what I can tell. So there's a marker for you. When we get to 75 to go on that tower on the left, that's when we could see drivers maybe try to undercut and get themselves enough to go to the finish. That's if we anticipate it going to the end under green. We'll see. It's been a bit hard to predict, I'd say, Jake, because we have had cautions, but they've been sporadic, and I haven't really seen much of a pattern other than the fact that it seems to happen on the backstretch.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's very, very unique in terms of the way this race has gone. Each instant, while it has happened on the backstretch, while it has happened out of two, each instant has been slightly different one to the next. There isn't a common theme, there isn't a common trend, and now all of a sudden you start looking at who's trying to make some progress. Ryan Doucette is one of them, trying to open up an overtake on Brian Mercurio. Not quite finding that at the moment. Austin Farr waiting in the wings just behind, but you don't sense that trend on caution type, and that's going to be crucial because it means that a caution can come from anywhere at any point at any time. As just behind, a little look from Tyler Gary trying to get past Kyler Wynn. Kyler Wynn's done really well to get back into position in this race after being involved in two incidents that have brought out cautions tonight.
Yeah, and has avoided any penalties, it seems, from them, if I can recall correctly. I don't see any in our little chat window that show that he was given an end of line by the stewards up till now, and I can't recall any. So he's been around the problems, but has avoided being too heavily influenced by them, it seems, at this stage, as Kyler Wynn is, as you said, in 12th and looking solid, although the 8 of Tyler Gary makes an easy pass down into 3.
That was a gift there from Kyler Wynn. Didn't want to fight it too much then at this stage of the race, and that might be an indication of if you don't want to battle, I want to get myself on fuel and tyre numbers. I'm not going to play that game. I'm not going to risk my race here on lap 112 here of 197. And it becomes that sort of game, really, where drivers aren't going to really want to push. As I say that, going right up is Frisch and Helton. I think Logan Helton here is playing a quiet race here. He's doing a really good job of just staying in the mix. And sometimes you just got to buy a ticket to go and be aggressive. It's going to go down to the low side, get that run. But look at that. That just shows you how much power. Was half a car ahead, and then all of a sudden finds himself about 2 car lengths in front. And Michael Frisch not too happy that it got a little bit close there, coming off a 2.
No, he's been running so safely up till now. I don't think he really wants to try and risk anything in this race that has certainly claimed a few victims so far, as he drifts all the way up to the outside, barely brushes it, and gets back down. And coming into 3 and 4, still not at that 75 mark, 75 lap mark, is up into the wall. Logan Helton this time is the one who's going to give a little bit of a brush to the wall.
That's not ideal. It brings Brian Mercurio into play, but now the chance to recover has brought itself there. And essentially, that's going to be your wake-up call in a race like this. You're never quite safe out there on circuit. It's a little bit easier when you're out there. We do have a taker in the lane, though. 11 laps down, Austin Johnson has just decided to drop down into the pit, so it might be a little bit out of schedule compared to everyone else here at this point in time.
Austin had a pretty hard hit earlier on, so he's probably still dealing with an ill-handling car. By the way, McCandless not quite charging through the field like I thought he would. He's in 18th, has been vying for 17th with Michael Cozy Jr. and Connor Horn, but seems like maybe the tire is just not behaving for him.
Maybe not, and he grabs the wall out of 4, which is just a glancing blow at that stage, which brings Horn then on the bottom trying to make that work, and you just notice it. There's different ways that drivers work. Yes, this is everyone running the same setup, Joe, but that doesn't necessarily mean that every driver drives it the same. It will benefit certain drivers and it will hurt other drivers in terms of the way that you go out it. 54 getting a big wiggle and a tap from behind, saves it down on the bottom. Daniel Falkingham very nearly finding himself in all shades of trouble on the front.
Whew. It's getting a little bit frantic out there. We have been out for some time now. Tires could be getting pretty, well, tired, as they've got 30 laps on them at this point. You see them all drifting up to that high side. to try and use as much of that track as they can, use the slingshot off the corner like they have all night long. And then once again, back down into 1 and 2. This fight between Oates, Falkingham, Corey and Akabueza back there towards the end of the field, fighting just as hard for every spot they can get. And no wonder with, again, just how deep of a talent level we've got competing in this one. It's in the realm of about 80 drivers trying to vie for 43 positions. Half of them go home every time, Jake.
Yeah, and that's what makes it one of the more unique series out there in sim racing in general. It's not often that you get a 43 drivers go home sort of scenario. I've seen a lot of series out there which have done a system where you've got split 1 and split 2 and split 3, which gives everybody a chance to race. But this ruthless mentality of you got to drive yourself into a series like this, I absolutely love. It just raised the competition level of every driver out there trying to qualify. And often when you get to the top levels, it's about the small margins, the fine margins that make that happen.
Well, while we're still in the midst of a stint before we get to the pit stops, we're going to take another short break here on FTF.GG. We'll be back, hopefully before we get our next set of pit sequence cycling through. Stick around. It's the final few laps here at Rockingham. Welcome back to Rockingham Speedway. We are on lap 128 of the TobyChristie.com 200, round 4 of the Barr Visuals FTF Cup Series. Zach Novak in the number 75 leads the way by about a second and a half over Blake Reynolds, who is in a fierce fight for second with Parker White currently back there. Our former leader, who at one point was dominating, Blake McCandless, is still trying to find his way back to the front. He got a penalty and is still down in 24th. Hasn't really done much to find his way up to the front. White going to get Reynolds now for that P2, at least for the time being. Reynolds rocks up to the back of him, goes high while the 011 goes low.
It's quite interesting to see how these drivers are struggling now on their tyres. It's like watching them wrestle an octopus at this point in time. It's pretty much get hands somewhere anywhere to make sure that the car points somewhat straight. And Blake Reynolds doing a good job behind that. Kevin King on the outside. It's not often we've seen him in that position with Michael Frisch on the low side, trying to get the move sorted now through 3 and 4. But now as you push up the track, where do you find enough drive off the exit? The answer is not going to be there. Caution comes out.
think Spencer Ray in the 6. He's slow on the backstretch. That's going to be my guess. Yes, it is indeed him. He's going to have quite the impact with Sebastian Marin. Everybody else was able to avoid getting caught up in the incident.
That might have just given everybody here, Joe, who hasn't pitted, the free pass to take their stop. And that's going to be key. So here is the 6. It's then again going to be turn 2 where it happens. But, oh, that's a huge snap. It just snaps. And when it gets loose like that, there's nothing you can do. You just become passenger at that point, fighting with the limit of grip, and just pushed over it. And it was so innocuous.
As one of my peers, Adam Young, would say, that is the hospital wobble, that one right there. And unfortunately, it sent the car in for repairs because of it, as the drivers now duck into pit lane. We come back live, and pretty much everybody. Now, we had a couple drivers that did pit right as we were going to break. I see Blake Bryant, David Brown, Nick Olson. They're all lapped down. I think they may have been... Yeah, it looks like Nick Olson pitted. Derek Justice, I think, pitted. So, yeah, Justice definitely pitted. I remember noting that he had gone in. So they, unfortunately, were at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Oh, what a battle off of the pits as well. That then is Zach Novak and Parker White pretty much too wide, trying to leave the boxes, and that pretty much brought everybody into position. Now, what I find interesting was the early stop by Derek Justice, and he has been caught out in the wrong position here. He's going to have to wait to filter out. He's going to be, I believe, behind Brandon Hawking, behind Kyler Wynn. So looks like Justice really missed out. He was really racing on the wave around to gain as many places as he could. He comes out behind Kevin McAdams. He's really lost out in the early stop.
Did you say Kylo Ren was in this race?
Well, I don't know. He's probably going to be good. Kyler Wynn definitely having a good run, but Kyler Ren would certainly be an interesting addition to any race.
It would be indeed, as we get cycled back around with a couple cars waiting to go on to the lead lap. AJ Green, one of those. Justin Malillo going to take his lap back. Chris Wetz and Nick Olson, as we mentioned a little bit earlier. Marin comes back around. He was obviously involved in that wreck, so he had to take some repairs. But yeah, it was a close fight down to the line at the end of the pit lane, but Novak came out the winner over White. But this is what we were hoping for, Jake, is with McCandless kind of falling by the wayside, the lead has been a fierce battle. Now White's heading towards pit lane. What's going on here?
A path of least resistance, Joe. This is fuel-saving tactics every single stage of the way. By taking the shortest pass possible here on this running under caution, he's trying to give himself enough margin as possible under this section where if they do reach the final stages of this race, there is going to be a case for him to be made of, right, okay, I need as much fuel as I can so that I've got enough that I can. Maybe he was trying to get out, save a bit, and try and jump Zach Novak. It didn't quite work, so now he's going to have to try and play the game.
Now, they do have a choose cone in this race, which is why you've been seeing them line up a little funky sometimes. But Parker still down on the bottom there and threw a whole lot of marbles from what I could see. There's a lot of gunk there on the apron. I don't think this is going to help him that much on the start. It's going to be a very slippery car with how much he just put onto the tires that should not be there. So 63 laps to go when we get that green flag. Will we be able to get to the finish from here again? There's been some cautions, but there's no real discernible trend on how frequently they're coming out. It just kind of is you pit at your peril. Hopefully everybody should be able to get to the end, but they're going to be on some very, very worn tires by the time they get there. Green flag is out, and Novak is off. White, as I expected, struggling to get this speed up. King trying to move ahead of Blake Reynolds, and he's going to be able to do it.
He is going to do it, and he's going to manage it quite nicely. Parker White, the only driver in the front five that has a victory to the name so far this season, and that's going to be crucial. That's not, though. Right up the top, no cautions come out. Caution finally comes out as the car breaks the plane of 90 degrees then going through, and that, as much of a disaster as goes through, is the 26th then of Kevin McAdams, who gets caught out.
And this was with Nate in that number 4. No, Nate did not touch him. I'm seeing a second time here. But he did, unfortunately, move right in front of the 73 of Oates and just kind of pinned him to the wall. Everybody behind was mostly able to avoid it. A little bit of contact between the 22 and the 045. But that could have been a lot worse considering how close together everybody was. And yeah, very similar to what we've seen many times already tonight.
Drive off of 2, gets the kick of being loose, and then effectively car on the outside. It's almost a carbon copy of what happened in the initial instant of the night, just a little bit more dramatic. There, you get caught on the outside there. If you are the number 73 machine, you don't really have anywhere that you've got to go, and then whoop, not much you can do there, and the caution doesn't come out until the car breaks the plane, and that's the key there. The car only now breaks the plane at 90 degrees, which means that the caution does come out then here at Rockingham Speedway.
Well, Hall was kind of, or Oates was kind of stuck in a narrowing hole there, it seems, as the driver just unfortunately did not have many places he could go in that situation. As more drivers now going down to the bottom, trying to save a little bit of fuel. Reynolds, one of them, looks like the 47 of Austin Farr as well, trying to do a bit of fuel saving. I thought 75 laps seemed the more doable one, but I guess there are a few of them that are kind of concerned about their fuel mileage.
Yeah, you would be concerned about your fuel mileage at this point, and everyone's sort of playing the game. Well, if one driver can go down and Parker White's not having anything for it, well, we might as well all join and go down onto the bottom if we can. And that's going to be the sort of understanding that they all go through. So they're all going to be trying to stay alert in that stage of the race. They all know that they want to be getting as much as they can. But now you start thinking about, okay, this isn't quite ideal. A caution immediately after a caution, that's not going to be doing those rear tyres any good if they continue to have to spin up and go through the heat cycles of these restarts, Joe.
Yeah, that's a good point. I know I keep touching in on him, but I'm curious if his pace is going to be enough, and Blake Reynolds still only in 20th place. So maybe we'll just have to stop checking in on him if he's unable to do anything more with what he's got out there, and might be down to guys like Novak, White, Reynolds, King, Mercurio. Mercurio, by the way, up from 30th position on the start, so 25 position gain for him, and Reynolds as well, up 18 since the start of this race. There have been some big climbers from the back, really either utilizing pace or just some very good strategy.
Yeah, and that's where you start noticing that the cream in this series does rise to the top, and someone like Brian Mercurio, for example, comes into tonight's running 6th place in the championship after 3 races run, 2 top 10 finishes to the name, and really showing that he does have a turn of pace, and it doesn't quite matter where he qualifies the car. He's got a very quick car here today, and he's certainly made some good progress of it in the 41.
He saw the choose cone, the double up, so drivers are now getting ready to restart behind the pace car with its lights off. And we'll go racing now with only 58 laps left. But can we go a little bit farther this time? Can we get some green flag running? I'm sure more cautions would actually help a few in that fuel mileage if they are continuing to be a bit worried about trying to make it to the end. But we'll see if that becomes an issue or not. We're down to 41 drivers still out on track. We've lost Austin Johnson and Liam Sheen, despite the plethora of yellows that we've seen today. I guess not enough super hard hits to take people out of this race. The 75 of Novak has control, and the green flag is out. Another big jump from that number 75. Parker White has no response to him. Let's see if we can get out of 2 this time.
Well, it's some good drive there to get that to pretty much single file through the first 3, and then the loser on the inside at the moment is not Kevin King, but Blake Reynolds, who finds himself in 5th position and now be staring down the barrel at those behind, trying to get back into a position as quickly as possible. This is where you've got to be alert now. You've got to try and work and try and find a couple places here and there. Look at the 8 right up there. Tyler Gary is deciding that he wants to get moving. He wants to gain some places.
Way up high, up next to the wall. Big moment, though, last time around out of 4 for Parker White. He managed to keep it from spinning, but it cost him some time. You can see just how much distance Novak has put on the rest of the field because of that little checkup that the 0-1-1 caused. Everybody else behind him still fanning out, trying to find more advantage on a different line, but nothing doing. They're all just pretty much staying in position.
Couple of searches there, the likes of Austin Farr, for example, up top with Michael Frisch down below. Not really too much to change, but there's going to be a lot that they look at in terms of what you try to do. You're always trying to look after a couple of things. Tyres is one thing. The other thing is engine temperature as well. It's always going to be difficult, and we talked about tyre wear on top of it as well, Joe, and what makes this race difficult. Track temperature. It's hot today. This is really going to be eating into the tyres.
Yeah, I haven't seen it go any lower than 110 Fahrenheit on the track surface. The drivers have certainly been complaining about it in the lead up, and it probably has added to the dramatic wear and slipping and sliding that we've been seeing all race down to the bottom of the 41 of Mercurio. Wants another position, but King denies him for the meantime. Now he's going to try the opposite. He's going to go on the high side.
Well, if the bottom doesn't work, try the top, and it's that sort of race where if you can't make it one way, you're going to have to try and make it the other, and it doesn't quite work out there for Tyler Gary at the moment. He's going to have to be patient now and wait this to go through. You look a little bit further back and think, well, okay, what do you want off the exit? You're going to want a little bit of drive. You're going to want a little bit of poise, and you're going to want to try and work out, okay, well, what's the best way to try and get this through? You've also still got a number of drivers just waiting there, and waiting just outside the top 10 is Daniel Butafuoco, who is there and looking for one position to continue that 100% run of top 10s this season.
Just needs that one more, and he's got 52 laps to do it. It's time to play patient, at least for now. And then maybe when it gets closer, if he hasn't made up that one spot, maybe he can get a little more frantic with it. You look at all the drivers trying various lines behind him. That's a big group, including the likes of Zwack, McCandless, Cozy Jr., Justice, all in there. Justice, of course, has gotten his lead lap back, but he's still running in 17th position. Is making a lot better inroads than McCandless has been, if I'm honest.
I'd certainly say so, but you look at this stage, Derek Justice is going to be in a position as he gets close, and McCandless grabs the wall, then out of 4, which would have put Derek Justice in a bit of a predicament there. You look at what you need. Derek Justice, I think, is the first driver in this field who is really going to be feeling the pinch. And speak of feeling the pinch, he has to pinch himself that he hasn't put that one in the wall. He's done very well to hold that together.
Just about had a repeat of that same accident we've had so many times tonight, as once again McCandless brushing the exit of 4. He's used up that right side repeatedly. Eventually, I feel like that's going to bite him. Maybe that's actually what's been slowing him down and keeping him from getting back to the front, is he's just hit that wall too many times. But this time, he stays ahead of Justice and outruns him off the corner. Boxed in a little bit here in this mid-pack battle behind the 7 of Matthew Zwack currently.
Yeah, so everyone knows that they've got to get moving here. Zwack is just in front. It's Connor Horn who leads the train. Brandon Hawkin just in front, the Canadian there. So there is still going to be opportunities to make places, but you're going to have to pick and choose your moments, which Derek Justice decides he wants to try and do. Noticing that there's a bit of boxing going in, too wide off the exit. But again, when you've got that draft train, you've got an extra half a car length to work with on the run to 1. Not as strong as other places out there in terms of using the draft to advantage, but it's certainly available, and you can certainly find a little bit of availability to defend every time that you go through into these sections of corners, likes of 3 and 4, where it really does become crucial to get a run off the exit.
Yeah, something we haven't really talked about a lot generally is the speeds that you see here. 160 at the end of the straightaways, and then down through the corners, the lowest they're getting is 130. So there's not a lot of variation in speed at this track. And as you'd imagine with the high banking, not a whole lot of braking either. It's all about just trying to keep that momentum up. Speaking of keeping the momentum up, whoa, another big moment there for Justice.
Well, it's proving that they're trying to really race hard for it at this stage, but nobody is going any less than 100% right now. They are dancing on the limit as they go through into the corner they go. It's the 66 who finds himself on the outside. That's Blake Reynolds, who will be looking at Tyler Gary, thinking this isn't quite what I had in mind. The 8 there on the inside trying to get through. You then got Fire and Frisch, and also you've got the likes of Wynn and Tinsley trying to work a way back through. Now, Wyatt Tinsley was up as high as second position, but he really struggled just before the double cautions that came out, and that's why he dropped so far back down the order. He's going to have to work hard to get back through, especially if he's got himself an understanding of the driving of the car, which means he doesn't really like how late in the stint he goes on his tyres.
So down through 1 and 2 once again, and on to the back stretch in amongst this group as we fly around the bottom of 3 and 4, riding with that number 58, or excuse me, the number 20 rather, of Wyatt Tinsley. Oh, we got another caution. I can't say that I'm surprised with how many spins we've been seeing, or at least near spins. I can't find the car though. Who had a problem?
Well, it was again at turn 2, which is where the problem was, and that then certainly not good. I have found the car actually. I believe it was Michael Cozy Jr. who was the one who was caught out. Number 99, finding himself pushing over 100% and then into the barriers at the bottom of 2.
Yeah, I think he got a little bit of Blake McCandless. Oh, and McCandless had to really try and catch the car. He did a good job of not making that a worse wreck for him, as we see them head down to pit lane. At least some of them head down to pit lane. Yeah, this is a bit of a tough call. 25 laps since the last stop for most of them, and still a decent amount left to go. Do you try and take the tires now, hoping it'll go green and it'll give you an advantage? There's the touch with the 99, and it did look like a little contact with the outside wall with the 071. I'd love an onboard with McCandless, though, because this was a brilliant job keeping it from becoming a bigger wreck for him.
It was, and sometimes you see these accidents really fly out and get a lot further in terms of incident out there, but it was nicely done. So here's another little look. We'll take the onboard view then from Blake McCandless. Grabs a little bit out of 4, which would have been troublesome. Gives a push to the Camry in front there at the 31, and is right up against that wall, trying to get that drive. Ducks back down, tries to get more off the exit, and he's leaving himself a little bit of room. There was the contact, and basically just had to pin it to the wall, let everybody go by, and take the caution as they go through.
Ooh, interesting call for our drivers that pitted and those that did not. Cozy Jr., Jordan Worth, Matt Danson stayed out. Almost everybody else took their stops. I wonder if those 3 will pit in, though, because it looks like maybe they missed their pit stall, actually.
Yeah, they would have done. And they would have understood that Danson and Worth, when they came into the pits and looked to try and go through, they came in at the same time as Michael Cozy Jr., and they would have realised that the pit lane would have effectively been closed at that point, so wouldn't have been able to get the stop that they wanted. So they had to drive through in order to get there, and because the pits opened early, and so they had to wait, go through, get themselves back out, and then, thank you very much, they find themselves the lap down.
Alrighty, so we had the stops, and it's going to be Novak, White, King, Mercurio, Gary, your top 5 that have taken a set of tires and are going to try and carry on for the last 37 laps or so. But before we get back to the racing, we do want to talk about some of the upcoming events that we have on FTF.gg. The Winstel 2003 season coming up a little bit later. And then the Road to Pro qualifying, the eNASCAR qualifying iRacing series will be covered here on FTF.gg. The FTF Cup, Barr Visuals FTF Cup Series will return once again next week. I need to double check and see where we're going to be for that one real quick. But we also have the SimCar Penguin RC Grand Am Series, and that should be a lot of fun getting some road racing in here on the channel. As the drivers are... Do we have the lights out? Yes, we do indeed, and we're going to go double file, Jake.
We are going to go double file, and now you've got to make sure that you really put things together. They've got Atlanta on the horizon for next week, and that's going to be really, really important in terms of what you want out of Rockingham. You've got to make sure that these 37 laps that they've got left are going to be done really well, and it's quite an interesting manufacturer split as well up at the top, because you've got just the 6 of the top 7 out there being Chevrolets.
Obviously, all the cars in iRacing, the different makes are balanced out. They're identical, so there's no advantage to be had. It's all brand loyalty, but it is fascinating to see how many of the Chevys are leading here today. As the pace car is in, Novak's been strong on the restarts, jumping the field. He's going to do so again. Not as strong as we've seen in some of the others, but good enough.
It's a decent enough start. It will give just enough then to get the run through here at 1 and 2 and get run off the exit. There goes the 8, trying to save it in the fence, trying to keep it out, and it's going to keep it going. What an effort. Caution, though, will come out. Tyler Gary did just about everything to keep the car working.
Single car incident. Did hit the wall, and unfortunately just banged it up too much, was slow that they wanted to try and get a caution out, didn't want that to be a danger. So Tyler Gary back to the back of the field, just losing the rear grip. And I think the drivers have discovered that late in the day, this is going to just continue to get trickier and trickier. Let's see here. We're hearing there may have been a separate incident behind them as well. Let's see if it looks like we got the 8 on screen here first. So let's watch his incident.
Well, he said that he didn't like the fact he hasn't got fuel, and maybe that's a lack of downforce that comes into play and then causes all the trouble. And then behind, that's where the caution comes in. You can see sliding about there. That would have been troubles through there, and that's why the caution comes out. 45 degrees to the track, creating a beautiful broadside smoke screen there. And that is just how quickly a race like this can be in trouble. There's the slide, and that's a very good save. Immediately on the binders to keep it out of the bottom wall.
Tommy Gossett in the 003. Haven't really given him much screen time or talked about him all that much here today. But he sits on the lead lap even after that incident, but comes in for a pit stop in the meantime. Maybe to take some fresh tires, since he probably overheated those ones trying to lock that down and keep it from hitting the wall. So we go back to caution once again, and I wondered if we'd see this. We saw this last week, Jake, at Las Vegas, where we had actually pretty clean racing pretty much all race long back at Vegas, and then it was at the very end that we suddenly got some yellows. Everybody got frantic, and we couldn't seem to get some green flag laps in. So I wonder if we're going to repeat of that happening.
Well, here's the understanding that you have of a race. The money race or the money lap is lap 197. Everyone wants to be in position for that. Anywhere between about 50 to 5 laps to go. Everyone's looking around at each other going, well, I want position, I want place, and effectively a position means a little bit more the later into the race that you get. So when that independent value of an overtake becomes more and more during a race, drivers are going to want it more. They're going to get more aggressive in terms of how they get up through and try and gain those places. And that's why more instant is more likely to occur, because simply it just means a lot to gain that extra position. Patience isn't a value when you're running out of time.
Yeah, everybody kind of becomes Veruca Salt there at the end. I want it and I want it now. And the time is running out. So they maybe make some desperate moves that they're going to pay dearly for before this is over. I thought we had lost Spencer Ray, but he's gotten back out on track. He's 14 laps down, unfortunately. So it's still Austin Johnson and Liam Sheen, the only two that have DNF'd so far in this race. And actually, I think because of the number of cautions that we've had, I think everybody's managed to get back onto the lead lap. The other 40 cars besides Spencer Ray have all been waved back around and are racing the same lap as Zach Novak, which just increases the chances of everybody being desperate here at the finish. We got the 2 wide and everybody lined back up. Let's go back to racing with only 32 to go.
I tell you what, there are a few drivers to keep an eye out on here who have made great progress in the race. Matthew Zwack from 41st into the top 10. Connor Horn started outside the top 30, as did Brian Mercurio. He's going from the second row off of this restart to try and get himself moving forward. There have been some great stories through this race. Butafuoco is inside that top 10 he's looking for, and don't count out Derek Justice in 11th position. He has done wonders to get himself back up through the field, and he'll be looking for some more from row 6.
Here we go. Restart oncoming with the pace car getting ready to peel into the pit lane. Once again, the iRacing sedan ducks off. Novak has control, looks for it, and the green flag is out. He causes quite the checkup on his line. The 88 was very lucky, did not get hit from behind there. And down at the bottom, Parker White immediately shoots into the draft of the 75, trying to make sure that he can ride the coattails loose for the 47, unfortunately, of Austin Farr. He gathers it back up to keep another incident from happening quickly out there. We do at least get one lap under green this time.
We almost don't, because I believe we had one really struggling out there of turn 4. Very nearly had an incident there, but we are able to keep it going. But look at it as they swarm. The middle of the pack still at 2 wide. At some places 3 wide, trying to sort themselves out. And this is where you get that pack mentality. Get a position, one at a time, and you've got to just focus on the car in front of you. It's that sort of world they're living in at the point.
By the way, battle for the lead is on. Parker White made a big move on Novak. He couldn't get it done, but he got to the inside of him critically. Novak has to watch out. This is not a done deal.
No, and you can see how hard he's driving it up into the corners. He is wanting to break away and break away as quickly as he can, but Parker White is not having any of it. I wonder if he's hit the magic number that says he's good. Slight tap of the wall there, going through 2, and that suddenly means that, hello again, Parker White stays close. King in 3rd, Mercurio in 4th position, and they're all going to have to start wondering, okay, well, what do we have to do to go out there and win this race? This is where we're going to have to start thinking about being more aggressive. 2 bites to save it for Parker White, and 1 in the fence up top is going to be in a lot of places dropped.
Who is going to get to the finish of this one? We've seen so many cars get loose today, and credit to the drivers. Yes, we've had a lot of yellow flags, but I've seen so many saves out there.
There's another one.
And there, I shouldn't have said anything. Michael Cozy, we got a big one, unfortunately. This collects a lot of drivers. Cozy at the start of it, and I think he's going to get tipped around by Gossett, actually, again.
So that just shows you how quickly an accident can happen and how long it can happen here at Rockingham Speedway, because it is that banked section, and you've got Navrocki who was caught up in it as well. Because this is banked straight, and it's not often you see it, 8 degrees is quite high for a banked straight from understanding. You're going to see a lot of accidents sort of pitch down to the bottom of the circuit. When they do, it comes back up the circuit with just how narrow it is coming off that section. Now here's a look at it then from the 37 and the 01's perspective, and coming through, well, the smoke happens in front of them. Cozy loses it off the corner, and then we'll try and avoid it on the inside, but we all get together.
And poor McCandless is that third one in the 07-1 that just kind of piles in. He was doing everything right. He was slowing down, and then it just, unfortunately, all just enveloped him in the end, as I see a couple drivers pitting in. Some of those probably due to damage from that wreck, but I think some are not. I think we finally are starting to get a little bit of a split strategy. Here's another angle on it.
Well, 3 wide as they go through, and there's Gossett getting involved, and that's the tip. So getting a little bit congested in the middle, and then you can see he just gets taken for a pinball ride there, does Gossett, because he gets hit twice, 3 times. He went about the whole straight being sideways or backwards.
He did. So Gossett, unfortunately, reaping the rewards, it seems, of that one. Just getting that little bit loose, and he winds up becoming a punching bag, unfortunately. Looks like he has been stuck in pit lane for some time because of those hard hits. A few others are still sitting in there. Kolonix is waiting for some repairs. Cozy Jr. naturally, because he took a pretty hard thwack up against the wall, I think a couple times, honestly. Nope, Michael's going to get back out after just a little bit of repairs. and he's going to be able to stay on the lead lap as the pace car is just coming around, so he beat that out barely. He might still come in for more repairs if he feels he needs it, but we'll see. We're chipping away at that lap count, but now is probably as good a time as any to mention that this race can, in fact, go into overtime. We could have 3 green-white checkers.
We could, and that is where the fuel game becomes really important. Everyone's looking to try and save a little bit. If there is a caution between 5 and 2 laps to go, which would trigger, in a sense, that run of going to that overtime where you go a green, white checker, which means you need 2 clean laps to finish the race, and if you can't get it done through 3, well, that will be that. And I think that's going to be crucial because Zach Novak has proven that off of these starts, it is taking a couple laps to get to him, and those couple laps, I think, are the most important. That's what the 75's trying to do. Keep it in front.
All right, here's some names, so get your clipboard out. Kyler Wynn, Kevin McAdams, Corey Carpenter, David Brown, Matt Danson, Cosmin Ionescu, Logan Helton, and Brandon Hawken, along with Chris Wetz and Justin Melillo. Those are the drivers that stopped in this time, this yellow, and took fresh tires, did a standard pit stop. They're all from 22nd on down. Keep an eye out for them, because there's only about 16 laps difference, but we saw it was 2 to 3 tenths a lap difference for 8 laps apart up at the front of the field earlier on in this race. If that's a big if, they can go green, Jake, this might actually be a smart call.
Half a second a lap, that's a lot, but you're going to need green flag laps to make it happen, and that's the big key as they run through 3 and 4. Zach Novak, the 75, in control of the field. He's going to hope that those drivers behind don't catch him up by the end of this race.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they had little to lose there in the mid-pack as the green flag is out. Had to take a gamble, because if we do stay green, this will pay huge dividends for them. If it doesn't, nothing risked, nothing gained, I suppose, for them. As Novak leads off the green flag, White is once again dutifully into second. It's a battle for third between Tinsley and King. Tinsley on the bottom, King on the high side.
Well, King trying to get that drive off the exit is going to manage it, and is going to get some help as well, because there is the 41 of Brian Mercurio starts to move through and jumps up through into position. The 7 as well on the bottom, Matthew Zwack, trying to make some progress low, but high is the way forward, and there's another one.
Mid-pack, I think it looks like I saw Cosmin Ionescu. Oh, yeah, so this was in front of him, I think. I think the 82 of Kyler Wynn. Oh, there goes those fresh tires, unfortunately. He was going 3 wide, just got a little bit of a touch. They weren't separated enough behind him to give him any place to go, and, well, a whole bunch of drivers just started making contact. Amazingly, they did drive out of it. Nobody really fully spun 180 degrees around, and it basically may have been a little bit of a trigger-happy moment from the stewards, but we did have a separate incident. Let's see. I haven't seen this. What's going on here?
Oh, that's not going to be very nice. Getting there on the bottom, able to save that one going through. So that's the 99 then finding that one going through. So that's certainly not going to be ideal. Sorry, 66 there finding troubles. But this is where it goes wrong here. And this is where you're 3 wide. Try and get it through the corner, just washing up, gets into the back there. So Brandon Hawken was the one who got caught up early, but you got now that sense of, well, okay, you're in the middle, you're 3 wide. The one thing you're not going to have if you're in the middle, Joe, is grip through the corner, and just that washing up process, I think, really cost that run. You can see it once again, just up the hill, little loose coming in, just gets the tap, and then suddenly, whoop, there you go, chain reaction, everyone back to normal, let's keep going.
That's amazing stuff right there. So this now puts Kevin McAdams as our highest driver on the fresh tires because of the involvement Wynn had in that incident. Boy, Wynn's had quite the adventure today, between being sent down to the inside wall, barely avoiding major incidents, just having light taps, now having that moment where he was sideways through 1 and 2. Let's see, highest 6th place, lowest 43rd. He's run the gamut.
He's been up, he's been down, he's been all around. At the end, he might be able to shout Yahtzee or something by the end of it. He certainly had that sort of day where it's been, okay, we have been just about everything, and he can claim the full house at the end of it. He's done pretty much all that you can do in a race, except pilferate the top 5 and try and go out there for that victory. But it's more laps to be ticked off, and I don't think that will mind for number 75, Zach Novak. He's going to quite like it if he can just continue to tick a couple laps off, because that's an extra 3 or 4 more laps here, Joe, that he doesn't have to spend worrying about losing a place behind him.
All right, so we still have to come around another time before we go double file here. And looks like we've lost Tommy Gossett, unfortunately. Oh, and Blake McCandless, I think, has officially retired now. So that's 2 more drivers gone. Spencer Ray probably appreciates that because he's now going to get himself a couple positions through attrition. AJ Green in pit lane. Looks like, okay, he just came back out. So he must have just been getting some tires or maybe, doing a few repairs before he finishes up this race. And the choose cone out there on the front stretch as the drivers now decide where they want to restart this one. If we can get this one restarted, it has been just an absolute slog of cautions in the final 60 laps of this race.
Yeah, it shows just how much it means that these drivers are going to push themselves right to the limits. You got Zach Novak, though, to 75 in control. And let's not forget, 011 down there, Parker White, second position, the 11. It's the points leader there in second position, right up at the pointy end of the field, where they should be, racing fantastically, and everyone who's in and around is right in the mix on the points. So the best of the best are up there at the top, and it's showing that they are really wheeling and making everything happen. And look at that, trying to get a little bit of heat maybe into those tyres as they run through 3 and 4.
Yeah, they've had them so cool for so long, having constantly having to run those yellow flag laps, that I'm sure it's going to be difficult to try and have them up to the desired temperature. We'll see what they can do here as the green flag is out. The 75 is off and away. They are really scattering behind him, though. Oh, and that's going to tip the 4 into a bit of a slide. He catches it, so no yellow there, but still scary moments. We didn't even get to turn 1 this time.
Yeah, Nate Stewart was the one who found himself almost turned, but he gets okay with it. But look at the drive then through 3 and 4. Tinsley on the bottom against Kevin King. Good drive off the exit on almost for the lead as well. Top 2 once again looking like they're checking out, trying to get away. More drive then in from Tinsley. Behind that is Mercurio. On the bottom is Butafuoco trying to get some work, and a big loss there for the 20. Able to save it, but it's going to cost him a boat of places once again, and will drop almost out the top 10 entirely.
Fishtailing all the way up and down the backstretch. The 4 now once again has to check up. These cars are not happy under these conditions. I wonder if they did have way too many heat cycles like you mentioned, Jake, because they seem like a handful, and Parker, speaking of a handful, is making life difficult for Novak.
Absolutely is. Pushing to that low line. Caution comes out, though, once again. Trouble's out there on circuit. And there you can see a slide to a very protracted stop. Not good for Nick Olsen.
It started in front of him. I think it was a loose moment for John Oates and Corey Carpenter. And Olsen just kind of was, he was almost 4 wide in that moment. Had no place to go and got shoved around. So drivers very packed up. They're very desperate for positions. Yeah, you're going to see here, I don't know what you can do in this situation if you're Nick.
Oh, your passenger, 73 on the outside, slows up, and you've got nowhere to go because it's 3 wide all around you. You're pretty much packed in like a sardine, and when you get yourself into an accident, you're just going to have to hope and pray that the way you make contact isn't going to turn you around. And so you're going to take a look. This is the onboard view, and this is going to demonstrate this fantastically. Up against the wall, puts himself in the box essentially there, and then as it's sliding, it's the 38 there that makes the contact. The moment it checks up, everyone's just going to start driving into you from behind. Not much you can do there if you were Nick Olsen, and it's just a real shame that an incident like that comes to be.
How'd you like to do 130 down the backstretch going backwards? He did a really good job staying calm and not panicking that situation. Just kind of let it drift, and everybody coolly went around him after his initial spin and didn't hit anything after he got hit. So nice job to Olsen in what was no doubt a scary situation, but this does send him down pit lane. Unfortunately, what happened to our drivers that took those extra tires? Have they seen any dividends? I'm going to say no. Kevin McAdams is still sitting in 19th, unfortunately.
Yeah, just hasn't had enough time, really, to go out there and make something happen. I think it's been that sort of day where if it's been difficult to go and make something happen, that, okay, those who have pitted early and tried to gamble on those tires to get that run through, they just haven't had the time. So not having the time means, you're not there. You're not gaining those places. You're not getting enough time to make the tires work. And that's always the downside, as if it does generate into caution after caution, which it has done in this race. Well, getting fresh tires means nothing. You've just sacrificed the track position for minimal gain.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what's happened here. And I kind of said that earlier, that the drivers are taking a gamble. We don't know if it's going to work out, and that's kind of a no. It's not seeming to work out. It's down to 12 to go here. We're probably going to be restarting with 10 to go in this race, and that's if we don't have those green-white checkers to extend it a further few laps in this one. Based on the trends that we've been seeing, I really would not bet on us getting green flag running to the end. But you never know. I'd love to be pleasantly surprised. Parker White, though, is the giant question mark in this, because we've seen him, Zach, do some pretty aggressive moves to try and take that lead away, but none have worked so far. What can he do to beat Novak?
I'm not sure why you'd ask our director, Joe, but I'm sure I'll answer for you.
Sorry.
I think that what he needs to do out there, Parker White, is that he needs a little bit of time, but B, he needs a little bit of help. And I think that's the crucial second part, a little bit of help. If you can get a good bit of help behind him off of the start, and it allows him to pivot to side-by-side into 1 and 2, he's got a chance. He hasn't found that yet. It's really difficult to do. I think Parker White just needs a little bit of help to get there. One of the drivers, though, I think it is worth keeping an eye out on, though, is number 031, Derek Justice. What work he's done. He was 12th about 10 laps ago. He's now back up to 4th. He has got a real shot of making something happen in this race, Joe.
I didn't realize that he had climbed that far back forward. So, yeah, incredible work by Justice. What can he do with it now that he's there? We're waiting for the green flag as the pace car is getting ready to duck off. There it goes. Novak given control. Green flag is out. Another very, very good run off of that call there for the 75. Justice unable to try and make any positions, although he's underneath the 88 of Kevin King. Looks like through the first 2 turns, he's a little faster, but the high side has been the place to be. And as he falls back along the backstretch, we get another caution right away. And I see Cozy may be involved in it. Yanashu, unfortunately, in the 84. Yeah, it looks like the 84 is, I think, some of the first ones.
Yeah, and it just checks up early. And again, out of 2. Becomes the place where it's happening, and a very quick caution like that leaves little to the imagination. Then knows that there's going to be a lot of space in the window, which leaves overtime as a real certainty, a real possibility. So let's take another look then here, middle of the field. This is where it all starts to go wrong, and we'll just take a little notice here with the 84, see exactly what goes on coming off the exit of 2. 71 comes up the circuit and effectively trying to use all the lanes up there as the 84, and that's why the tip happens.
Oh boy, it's definitely getting a little testy out there now as well. Drivers, I think, getting a bit more annoyed at what's been going on. And let's see what happens with Princess Daisy here from the back. Unfortunately, yesterday was Mario Day, and so, well, just a nice little checkup to stay out of trouble. That's how you do it. Just you see the smoke, and you pull the car to a slow down and make sure that you don't add to the trouble.
I will say that Princess Daisy, in terms of the Mario universe, if you think that Princess Peach is Queen of America, for example, President of America, the difference for Princess Daisy, she's like the princess of about Venezuela. About that sort of difference.
I don't know why you went with that country, but okay.
I was looking for something of a similar comparable size. There's a huge difference of it. You can see there on Brett's car there. He's not only got the Daisy there, but he's also got a rack that looks like it's just come out of Blockbuster.
He does indeed. Yeah, I'm trying to see what all games he's got over there. So real OG gamer stuff going on, I guess, for him as he's getting back to the front of the field, or at least the back of the field, I should say, here. And going to get back into things. Still on the lead lap. Spencer Ray's appreciating all these yellows because he's still one of the few cars that are a lap down, and he's now down to 12 laps behind. I think we're going to run out of lucky dogs before he gets back onto the lead lap, but credit to the 6 for sticking with it and trying to get himself as high up as he can.
Probably the most well-earned 39th place you'll get in a very long time there, Joe. But I'm sure that in these stages, he's going to be thinking about, well, okay, let's just find a finish. There's always going to be something about finding a finish in a race like this, where it goes through and it's really tough to reach the end. And I think that's one of the reasons why they call this Rockingham Speedway, they call it the Rock, because it's such a grueling climb to get to the end of this race, it seems.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Yeah, I've always called it the Dory Award because you just keep swimming and you just keep trying to see what you can get. And Spencer Ray, I think, gets that one today. He's down to 11 laps, actually. He just got waved around for another one. So that's another chip off the block as we're going to get restarted with 5 laps to go now. And if we have a caution from here, that's going to be it. We are going into overtime, crossing fingers that we can manage to get to the checkers.
Well, cross fingers, cross everything that you got then, because it's going to be a very, very tough ordeal from these drivers. This is where you're trying to throw everything at it because you're in the money zone now. You're looking for every position you can get your hands on, and drive is going to be key. You look at how everyone's been pushing for it. There are a number of drivers who are in and around who could really make something happen, who could really do with an extra couple of positions. You look at the likes of maybe Austin Farr, who's been a little bit quiet in this race. He's someone maybe to keep an eye out on this run here to potentially either overtime or victory lane.
Here we go. Getting ready for another restart. Will it be our last, or are we going into our first green-white checkers? Green flag is out. This time, Novak, he doesn't go. Parker White's got a nose ahead. Can he get the lead he's been trying for so long? He's almost in front.
Got it. Caution.
Oh, wow.
And not only that, Novak's around. So this is going to junk up everything. The order is going to be so muddled up. And now that is the big one here out in the field. It caught everybody unawares. And not only that, it brings it towards overtime.
What happened to Novak? He started to spin just as that yellow was thrown. So it wasn't because of the 75.
He just lost it, Joe.
Oh, my goodness.
And this is what we're talking about. You're putting cycle after cycle of heat into the tyres. At some point, the tyres are going to scrub and they're going to feel very, very old hand. And that's what we saw there. So we'll get a look at the middle of the field, see exactly where it goes wrong. You can see it stacks up very early as they go through. And now they're looking for a line. Now you're looking for a line. One in the middle not going. And then the 22 ends up in the wall, which is not where you want to be out there on circuit at all in any way, stage or form. Alex Kalanick is not going to be very happy that his race ends like that, but Novak was so interesting because the tyres just went, nope, you don't have grip.
Really shocking, especially because of that start as well. I wonder if he spun them up trying to get them going. But here's the incident for the 75 that, again, this was not what caused the yellow, and yet so many cars suffered because of this, just piling in since it happened right at the front of the field.
So this now means that Parker White, the points leader, leads this race. It's Derek Justice now in second, and Daniel Butafuoco up now into third position. So this is what you see. When you're in the middle of the field, you've got to work, and there was such a push that went through. Bam, there's the issue. Caution comes out, no grip, and just nowhere to go. And everybody then realizes, right, where do we go? track's jammed up. It didn't really cost anyone time too much. It costed about a half a dozen drivers time, but position-wise, if you threaded your way through it, you really profiteered.
Derek Justice did. He's now up to second. And talk about insult to injury. The 75 of Novak has been deemed as one of the causes of the caution. He and the 82 are being given the EOL on this one. Novak has done the motor racing version of tripping at the finish line. He had this thing what seemed like locked up in the latter half of the race.
Yeah. And just confirmation, the race will be extended for a green-white checkered finish. They must get 2 clean laps in the book, and then the race is done and dusted, which means that this race, which was scheduled to be 197 laps, now gets the extra lap at least 198 to sort itself out. And for the first time in a long time, Parker White, Derek Justice, they were racing each other around lap 40, lap 50. Now they bring themselves together at the latter stages of this race. We've had one driver who's been right up at the front, pushing for that victory all the way along. And Derek Justice, who, remember, had that early pit stop with about 75 laps to go and is trying to get back to the front. And it has been a real slog for the 031 to reach back and get that point.
All right, so I think, yeah, light's still on, so we're not going back this time, it seems. Still got to wait another lap. Nope, they've turned off. Excuse me, was looking at the wrong line. So we are going back racing this time, and then we will see if we can finish this one. Now, yes, they do need to complete 2 laps, but one rule that we do need to clarify about these green-white checkers is they can have accidents after the white flag comes out and still finish under green, as it's only cautions that are pulled out before that white flag that will reset the green-white checker. So if they can make 1 lap clean, they're home free to finish this, and we'll see if they do so. Because they've certainly had trouble getting at least 2 laps since about 60 laps ago, unfortunately. It's been just caution-filled, and Parker White suddenly finds himself at the front of the restart. He hasn't been in charge of these. Does he have anything up his sleeve? Pace car heads on in. Let's hope he doesn't spin the tires like the 75 may have on that last one. No, it is solid. No, he did spin them a little bit, but he holds on to it well. Justice can't do anything to try and challenge him as they head down into 1 and 2. But Afuco is trying to hold off the 67 of Connor Horn on the high side as they fly down the backstretch, Jake. Can they get to that white flag?
That's the question. No is the answer, because caution comes out, 1 down, and look at it. It junks up to the top of the track, and suddenly 1 of the 3 chances falls away. So that brings in a bit of a perspective of just what you have to deal with. You're really trying to race for that line, and to think about it, it's only a 27-lap run here on the TobyChristie.com 200, but this is where it's going to be. Well, how hard do you earn it? For Derek Justice, he'll breathe a sigh of relief because he's got another chance at this here from the front of the field to try and get that jump he wants.
Now, when we went to the incident, it looked like it was happening in turn 3. This was dominoes. It started out of turn 2 and went all the way down the backstretch as we take a look at the replay. And as you can see, many cars eventually involved in it, but just kept on carrying on. You can see that's where it starts. Drivers trying to scatter, and with everybody erupting in chaos, it's hard to tell what to do, and unfortunately, they run out of straightaway.
Yeah, it's all luck at that point when you got cars scattered at 6s and 7s. You just got to pick a line and hope that it doesn't encroach on you. So that's how quickly it can go from looking nice to looking not very nice at all there. So you just have to be patient. You just have to look and say, well, what can you do? And this is where it goes. 3 wide in the middle. There's the tap, and ultimately, bang! God, that's a horrible, horrible hit on, I believe, Brandon Hawkin, who I believe got caught up in that, maybe. So you're looking at that and going, okay, well, what do you need? You need a little bit of luck. And that there was just a heavy, well, I'm in it for the ride.
I haven't checked in on those drivers that changed their tires. One has actually made pretty good inroads recently. Kevin McAdams is up to 11th now. That said, I don't know if that's down to tires so much as he's probably just avoided all the wrecks that we've been seeing up to this point. So we got 2 more of these green-white checkers. How many more positions can he gain during that time by staying out of it? We're hearing that there doesn't look like there's going to be a penalty on this one, as they're calling that wreck due to netcode. And 22 gets the lucky dog this time. So poor Spencer Ray is only 10 laps down now. Others drivers have gone laps down and are trying to make up for those. But we haven't lost anymore as far as I can tell. Everybody's still bound and determined to get back out into this race, barring... Oh, no, I spoke too soon. Brian Mercurio has been sitting in pit lane taking a lot of repairs, so he might be done for.
Yeah, so that puts him a few ways away, but it's a shame for him. He was up inside the top 10 in points, so he's going to have to work hard to get those back. But this is a scenario of what would it mean. We know that Derek Justice is probably the lightest at the moment on the fuel. Everyone should make it. All of the cautions, they haven't done much running, so they should all be safe. They should all have enough of a tank to get themselves home. But at this point, you start wondering, well, what do you want to go and gain? What can you get out of it? And the one thing I will say is that if there's anyone who's probably in the least favoured position, 031 is probably that person who doesn't have as nice of everything compared to everyone else. Now, Austin Farr looked pretty nice off of his run. He almost pushed it 3 wide between Horn and Butafuoco. Didn't quite make that happen, but you gotta get the drive. That's the important thing. You've got to get the drive. It's half a second we're talking about, maybe less than that, Joe, but that is the difference maker in a race like this. Just that small margin of time.
Absolutely. More drivers trying to get a little heat into the tires. I think they're getting concerned about these restarts. We've been seeing more issues on them. Just not even going into the corner, but just getting off the line and getting going. So I wonder if the tires have seen the best taken out of them despite very few green flag racing laps. And they're now a struggle to get the power down, and nobody's willing to give up position by coming into pit lane because they not have had the chance to try and get some passes in. Green flag is out. Big old jump for the 110. He takes off the 031 of Derek Justice, is going to be able to retain second place. Let's try and get to that white flag.
It's all about now pressure. Who's got enough nerve as they go through? One hits the wall and the back is shot, but they're okay for the moment. Driving in through 3 and 4, for third, for fourth, for fifth. It's certainly still on, but it's clear sailing for Parker White and the TobyChristie.com 200. It will go official from here. White flag out at Rockingham.
We're going to get a green flag finish in the end. Parker White has a clear advantage over Justice. Can he hold on to it? He's been good so far. Tires look a little weak right now with little squiggles coming off the turns, but all he has to do is make one more corner exit here out of 4, and he does it. Parker White is going to win today at the Rock.
No doubt about it. Points leader, now the wins leader, the first driver this season to pick up multiple wins, and that is a sign that this might just be your season. Parker White is stamping a claim of authority with the way he's driven today at Rockingham to say this is going to be my championship that you are trying to wrest away from me.
Had a couple spins on the backstretch on that white flag lap. I see Michael Cozy Jr. and Nick Olson getting into a little bit of trouble, but it looks like White's going to burn it down here on the front stretch in celebration of this latest win. The points leader is looking very good. First driver to get more than one win this season. It only took him till round 4, so he's looking like he might be one to watch out for as he fought hard to try and take this win. A little bit of luck came his way, of course, with the 75, making that mistake, but he grabbed it with both hands. Let's take a look at our results for the race. And Parker White on the top ahead of Derek Justice, who wound up in second. Daniel Buttafuoco was third, followed by Austin Farr in fourth. Connor Horn, 26 positions up to take 5th place. Nicely done. Tyler Gary was 6th and Blake Reynolds finished 7th. Our pole sitter, Wyatt Tinsley, did come back eventually to 8th. Nate Stewart finished P9 and Michael Frisch wound up 10th.
Good work there from him. Sebastian Marin would end up in 11th with Ryan Doucette in 12th. Logan Helton would end up 13th with Kevin McAdams, who was one of the first drivers to come in and make the pit stop decision with about 30 laps to go. Didn't quite pan out. 14th place overall ahead of Seth Nolan, the 1, and Corey Carpenter, the 38 Chevrolet. Matthew Zwack would fall back to 17th, was up as high as 7th, but not bad from starting on the 21st row of the grid, with Kevin King falling to 18th, Brandon Hawkin in 19th, and Daniel Folkingham rounding out the top 20.
AJ Green finished 21st, followed by Zach Novak. Disappointment there, finishing 22nd. He did gather a lot of spots back up in the end, but it definitely is not going to do much justice for him, considering he was looking at a win potentially. Blake Bryant was 23rd, and Chris Wetz was 24th. And it was Justin Melillo, P25, Kyler Wynn, 26. He had one heck of a night. Jonathan Oates in 27th. Cosman Ionescu was 28th. Ryan Naraki, 29th, and Hamilton Akabueza is 30th.
And now we're starting to hit the drivers down towards the back of the field, and then laps down and retirees. Jordan Worth, we saw get the penalty really early on, had a really good qualifying, but couldn't make much of it. 31st, Nick Olson, 32nd. Brett Pancari is 33rd, with Michael Cozy Jr. finding himself from pillar to post in 34th. And you had David Brown, Matt Danson down there a lap down, Alex Kalanix in 37th, Spencer Ray, Brian Mercurio finding retirement in the end, as was the early leader, Blake McCandless. He showed a lot of promise early on, but instant caught him out, as too Tommy Gossett, Austin Johnson, and Liam Sheen, the 43rd and final driver, Joe, here today in this race.
But the P1 driver, Parker White, is ready to talk to us now in that 011 machine. After a fantastic run, stayed patient so long, tried to make some moves. And Parker, were you surprised when you saw the bad start and then were able to get ahead of the 75, because you'd been trying so long to get ahead of him?
Yeah, that caught really the entire field off guard, because we are supposed to have that entire restart zone for the leader to go, but we got to the beginning and the green came out and Zach just wasn't ready for that. So I was on it and we went down into turn 1 and I had the nose ahead. And one thing that I felt was best for me all race was just wrapping the bottom. So I just made sure I made the corner, and Zach just drove it in so hard trying to stay on my right rear that he just spun it. So I was originally going to take the bottom on those last restarts, but I tested the high side on the restart and it was like way more grip, so I decided to take those for the last few restarts, and I made sure to go early in the zone because I didn't want to get caught off guard on the green like Zach did. But yeah, overall a really good race for me, and to go back to back, that's really good.
First driver to get 2 wins so far this season, and you're the points leader coming into this one. Does this give you a pretty good feeling about the big picture?
Yeah, it's definitely a really good way to start the season, especially with me already being the points leader. And I think we're at Atlanta next week, and that's obviously a super speedway now. So I'll just try to have some fun, because now these 2 wins on the season, and I was already locked into the playoffs last week, so should be fun for the rest of the season.
Obviously, it wasn't as fun having to deal with all those cautions at the end. Did you kind of expect to get that at some point during this race, with this being the Rock and the reputation it has?
Yeah, kind of right off the start, I realized we were going to wreck a lot. I even wrecked at the start because I was middle of 3 wide. We were coming off turn 2. There's just a little bit of net code that turned me into the fence, but it was just super tight. If we got 3 wide racing, then obviously there's going to be a lot of wrecks, and with it coming down to the end of the race, everybody's going to be going for every position they can get. So yeah, I did expect it.
Well done managing that race. Fantastic win. Congratulations once again, and hopefully we'll see you at Atlanta.
All right, thank you.
That was Parker White, 2-time winner already this season here at The Rock for win number 2. Up next, though, Jake has caught up with Derek Justice, who definitely had to climb up and down the field himself.
Derek, let's talk about 75 laps to go. You make the decision to come in under green conditions, and then just a small handful of time after that, the caution comes out. For you, what goes through your head when you get that caution just after that pit stop? How much are you trying to push, and how much did that affect your race being shuffled down out of position?
Well, that situation was an unfortunate circumstance with the new build that iRacing had with the auto fuel. It didn't fill me up all the way, so when we went green, I can only go 30-something on lap, so I had to make another stop after that. So therefore, the best case scenario was hopefully the green flag cycles through. Then hopefully grab the lead and the caution comes out, or try to be the lucky dog. And I was a lucky dog recipient, but starting 31st, coming through the back half of the race, it was difficult, but it was fun.
A number of cautions there over at the end of the race, and it seemed like every time we looked at you, you'd popped up a couple positions here, a couple positions there. How important was it for you to pick and choose the moments through what was a very, very, I would say, difficult final third of the race?
It was just like managing your setup on the passes, try to try to be observant where everybody is on the track, and try to create runs, and hopefully a hole fills or somebody messes up on the top lane, because the top lane was where you want to be at to try to keep your position. But if someone slips, you can fill in that gap in the top lane, and try hopefully the next person in front of you kind of slips up. So it was hard, but it was a lot of fun. Rockingham is one of my better tracks on this service, so it's good to come back from a little mishap there and finish P2 there.
Well, to get P2 is brilliant for you. We now turn our attention over to next week in Atlanta. So what's the thought process? You've built together a really strong result here. Do you think that gives you everything you want to jump back up in the points, to know that victory isn't a million miles away from you so far?
Well, if people know what my super speedway luck is like, it's not very good. So me heading towards Atlanta, somebody's stepping forward, I'm probably going to involved in somebody's mess or me doing something stupid. But we'll see. Hopefully the super speedway luck turns around here in the Cook Series and here on FTF. So we'll see what happens.
Just make sure to don't walk under any ladders. I think that's going to be your homework going into next week. Hope the luck's there with you. Derek Justice joining us there, Joe. Second position overall.
And that'll take us to the number 13 of Daniel Buttafuoco as well, who finished P3 today. Definitely did his best to stay out of a lot of the trouble that was happening there at the end, picking those positions. I mean, how do you stay out of trouble at a track like this with situations like that where it's just nonstop wrecks at the end?
You pray. It was pretty crazy. Started 16th, made up to the top 10. Honestly, it's pretty tired. I kind of woke up like 15 minutes before qualifying started, so didn't really know how this thing would drive. Took a while to really figure out long run. Wasn't sure what strategy I wanted to do with pushing, and then I think about past halfway is when I started to figure out how to use the tires up a little bit, how to just drive the track better, because I was pretty terrible center to corner. But then I had more laps, started to figure it out. Was able to run down the top 5. I think that last long green flag run before the yellow came out when we got up to like 9th or something, and then after that I was just choosing the right lane you wanted to be in on the restarts with the choose rule and everything. That was really it. I made a couple bad choices, but then I just kept finding opportunities where it could move me up a couple rows or in a better lane, and that was about it really. Kind of walked into it, not gonna lie, didn't have the pace for third. Probably had pace for maybe definitely top 10. Maybe a top 5, really. I don't know. But it is what it is. Race is over. Got third. So I'm pretty happy with the end game result.
Absolutely. I can understand that. Now, we did see a couple long green flag runs in the middle, and it seemed like a lot of people were struggling with the car off the corner, especially turn 2 where most of our accidents happened. How long did it take before the tires started to really feel a little greasy?
They kind of felt greasy throughout the whole run, honestly, in my opinion. It wasn't really exit. It was more center, I think. Center of the corner for me. Even on restarts, I struggled on restarts even. I just could not. I just wasn't comfortable. I couldn't really adapt fast enough compared to the other guys. But it was really center. I think just how you entered the corner too determined how your center was. And I feel like I kind of overdrove entry a little bit some points. Kind of felt the tire scrub. And if you drove it in a little too deep, your center would just be killed and you just have no drive off. So it was really just a matter of how you entered the corner, how early you let off the throttle, started putting on the brake is really what determined it. Because I feel like it was more center rather than exit. Exit was difficult, don't get me wrong, off turn 2, but really I don't think in comparison to center of the corner. But tough track. I mean, I had fun for a little bit. I guess I could say that, but I think towards the end there is where it got a little Yeah. And then we just about got through the wreck with Novak, where I think he just tried to get in Parker's right rear and just lost it. We got lucky with that one, but yeah, first podium finish and a top 10 every race so far. So gotta keep this up. I'm pretty tired, if you can't already tell. I woke up like 15 minutes before Q. I'm tired. I survived the Rock. We survived Dwayne Johnson. So I'm happy with myself. End game goal. So yeah.
So it's always just those little steps towards the top of the mountain. So,
Yep.
well, speaking of that mountain, you talked about getting the top 10s consistently. Are there any others you see up the road that you think, oh, that's a good track for me? I could do another podium there.
Honestly, I treat every track equal. Even the plate races, which I literally hate. Just every race is another opportunity, is the way I look at it. Doesn't matter if it's a road course, short track, mile and a half, even a super speedway. It's another opportunity to go out there and get a win. So yeah, some are more difficult than others for sure, but just can't really look at that. Just gotta be focused, not let the style of track get in the way of your thought process of how to approach things. You just gotta run your race and think about the end game goal, which is be there for when it matters, which is being there at the end for a win. So yeah, I mean, don't have any short answer, no. But I don't know. My goal is just to make Atlanta and just get points and just make the race to where we are a provisional for the rest of the races, so I can just kind of relax and then pick every race off, and then kind of use that time to just learn the next gen car, because I'm pretty well inexperienced in this car, trying to learn how to drive it, what I can get out of it, and there's a different driving style that I'm not used to, with being super delicate with the throttle, which is something I'm trying to work on. But overall, taking it race by race and trying to get better to where I can compete for wins, and I think we can by the end of the season, but it'll take some time. But looking forward to it for sure.
Looking forward to it on our end as well. That was Daniel Buttafuoco, your third place finisher here today. And that's going to wrap things up for us. Again, a big thank you to everybody for coming out and watching today's race of the TobyChristie.com 200. We'll be back again a little bit for round 5 at Atlanta. Make sure and tune in for that. From myself, Joe Peak, and Jake Sperry, as well as Zach Johnson, a big thank you for tuning in. Race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.